Nicole Williams, a mortuary assistant with cursed blood, is attacked by a rogue vampire and saved by Cassian Devereux, the cold prince and executioner of his clan. But when Cassian bites her, an ancient blood curse awakens, binding him to her in ways neither of them understands. As Nicole uncovers the truth of her ancestor Amara's brutal death and the curse placed upon vampires, the clan court turns against her, seeing her blood as either a weapon or a threat. With enemies closing in and Cassian struggling between obsession and love, Nicole must decide whether to remain a victim of old violence or reclaim her blood, her power, and her future on her own terms.
By midnight, the dead usually behaved better than the living. That was one of the first things I learned working at Bellwether and Son's funeral home. Bodies did not argue over invoices. They did not weep in the viewing room, or faint beside caskets, or ask me whether their loved one had suffered. The dead were quiet, honest in their own way. Whatever story the body had left to tell, it told through bruises, wounds, scars, and the terrible stillness of skin that would never warm again. But the man on my table had no story. That was the problem. I stood beneath the fluorescent lights in the prep room, gloved hands resting on the edge of the stainless steel table, staring down at the John Doe the county van had brought in 40 minutes ago. Male, mid-30s maybe, expensive shirt, torn open at the collar, no wallet, no phone, no shoes. And almost no blood. Not on the body bag, not pooled beneath him, not soaked into his clothes. His throat had been opened, but not like any animal attack I had ever seen. The wound was too clean at the center, too deliberate. 2 punctures sat just above the mangled flesh, deep and perfectly spaced, as if something with patience had bitten first and torn afterward. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look again. Animal attack, my ass, I muttered. The old radio on the counter hissed static, then cut back into a low jazz station mister. Bellwether liked to leave playing after hours. Trumpets bled through the cold air. Outside, rain ticked against the narrow basement windows, blurring the orange glow from the alley light. I should have called Dr. Mercer, the medical examiner. I should have locked the cold room and waited until morning. But curiosity was a bad habit of mine, and the dead had a way of making secrets feel personal. I leaned closer. The man's lips were parted. His teeth were stained red, but not enough. A person lost that much blood. It went somewhere. It marked the world on its way out. This man looked emptied. A chill crawled down my spine. I reached for my recorder. John Doe, received at 11:43 p.m. Cause of visible trauma appears to be severe tearing at the anterior neck with 2 pronounced puncture wounds located. The lights flickered. I stopped. The prep room hummed around me. Refrigerator units, pipes in the walls, rain on glass. My own heartbeat suddenly too loud in my ears. Then something moved behind me. Not a sound. Not a footstep. A shift in the air. I turned slowly, still holding the recorder. A man stood near the delivery entrance. He was tall, dressed in black. Not funeral home black, not mourner black. His coat looked tailored to hide weapons. His hair was dark, swept back from a face too sharp to belong in the basement of a funeral home at midnight. His skin looked alive, not corpse-like the way horror movies promised monsters would look. His eyes were brown so deep they seemed almost black beneath the overhead lights. I did not scream. Working with the dead trained that out of you. Instead, I grabbed the nearest thing on the counter, a trocar with a steel handle, and aimed it at his chest. "You need to leave," I said. His gaze flicked to the instrument, then back to my face. No fear, no surprise. If anything, he looked offended that I had interrupted whatever grim purpose brought him here. "You should not be touching that body," he said. His voice was low and smooth, cut glass calm. The kind of voice that expected obedience because it had never needed to ask twice. I tightened my grip. "And you shouldn't be breaking into funeral homes." "I did not break in. The locked door behind you says otherwise." His eyes moved past me to the body on the table. For the first time, something changed in his expression. Not emotion, exactly. Recognition, maybe. Irritation. "Step away from it," he ordered. A laugh slipped out before I could stop it. It sounded thin in the cold room. "No." His gaze returned to mine. That was the first moment I understood something was wrong with him. Not crazy wrong. Predator wrong. My body knew before my mind did. Every instinct I had went still. My muscles locked, my breath shortened. I felt like a rabbit that had wandered into the shadow of a hawk. "What's your name?" I asked, because fear made people stupid, and apparently I was people. "Cassian Devereux." He said it like the name should mean something. Like I should have stepped back, lowered my eyes, maybe thanked him for allowing me to continue breathing. It meant nothing to me. "I'm calling the police, Mr. Devereux." "No," he said. "You are not." The radio died. The lights flickered again, then steadied. Behind Cassian, the delivery door creaked open another inch. His head turned slightly. Not enough. Something slammed into him from the darkness. They moved so fast my brain couldn't understand it at first. 1 second, Cassian stood by the door. The next, he crashed into the cabinets hard enough to rattle jars of cotton and suturing thread. A tray hit the floor with a metallic scream. The thing on him looked like a man only in the cruelest sense. Its mouth was red. Its eyes were wild and glass-bright, veins darkening beneath the skin around them. It wore a blood-soaked shirt and moved with a hunger so raw it seemed to rot the air. When it opened its mouth, I saw teeth too long to be human. Fangs. My hand went numb around the trocar. Cassian caught the creature by the throat and drove it backward. They struck the opposite wall. The tile cracked. The creature hissed and clawed at him, its nails tearing through Cassian's coat like paper. I staggered back into the table. The dead man's arm slid off the side, fingers hanging toward the floor. The creature's head snapped toward me. It heard my heartbeat. I knew it did. Its nostrils flared. A smile spread across its blood-smeared mouth. "Fresh," it rasped. Cassian moved before it lunged. He caught it mid-air and hurled it across the room. It slammed into the embalming sink, denting the metal with its spine. "Run," Cassian said. I did not wait to be told twice. I bolted for the hall, shoes skidding on wet tile. My shoulder struck the doorframe, pain bursting down my arm, but I kept moving. Behind me, the room exploded into violent snarls, breaking glass, the heavy crash of bodies hitting steel. I made it 5 steps before the creature landed in front of me. I froze. It was hunched low, grinning, head tilted as if listening to music only it could hear. My pulse hammered. Its grin widened. "Pretty heart," it whispered. I swung the trocar with both hands. The point caught it in the cheek. It screamed, not in pain, in delight. Then it backhanded me. The wall hit my back. My skull cracked against plaster and the hallway blurred. I tasted copper. My knees folded, but I forced myself upright, one hand braced against the wall. Cassian appeared behind the creature like a shadow given shape. His hand closed around its skull. He wrenched it backward with such cold brutality that I heard bones strain. The creature shrieked and slashed upward. A silver blade flashed in its hand. Cassian jerked, but not fast enough. The blade carved deep across his side. For the first time, he made a sound. Not a scream, not even a groan. Just a sharp breath through his teeth, like rage had cut him open instead of metal. The creature twisted free and slammed him into the wall. Cassian dropped to one knee. Dark blood spread beneath his torn coat, steaming where it struck the floor. The creature turned back to me. I tried to move. My body refused. It came closer, savoring every step. Cassian's hand shot out and caught my wrist. I gasped as he dragged me behind him. Even wounded, he was terrifyingly strong. His fingers were cold around my skin, hard as iron. The creature laughed. "You're slowing down, Black Fang." Black Fang. The name slid through the room like a threat older than language. Cassian did not look at it. He looked at me. Really looked. His pupils had widened until his dark eyes seemed almost endless. His jaw tightened. I saw the decision in his face before I understood it, and my stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. His grip moved from my wrist to the back of my neck. "Stay still," he said. There was no apology in it, only command. I shoved at his chest. "Don't!" His mouth came down on my throat. Pain split me open, then pleasure followed so violently I stopped breathing. It was not soft. It was not romantic. It was invasion. His fangs sank deep, and my whole body arched against him, as if he had struck some hidden nerve beneath my skin. Heat tore through my veins, my fingers curled in his coat. The world tilted. And then he was inside my head. Not thoughts. Memories. My grandmother's hands braiding my hair when I was 7. My mother crying in the kitchen with the lights off. My first day at the mortuary, pretending not to tremble when I touched the hand of a dead woman. A locked cedar box beneath my grandmother's bed. A warning spoken over and over in a voice I had forgotten. Never let the dead thing drink. Cassian stiffened against me. His mouth was still at my throat, but his body went rigid. The hand on my neck tightened, then shook. Something ancient stirred beneath my skin, not waking gently, rising furious. A whisper filled my skull, soft as dust and sharp as broken glass. Let him choke on what he takes. Cassian ripped his mouth away. His eyes met mine, and for the first time since he had appeared in the funeral home, the monster looked afraid. Behind him, the creature lunged, and my heartbeat thundered in the space between us.
The rogue never reached her. Her blood was still on my tongue when I moved. Before the bite, the silver wound in my side had slowed me. After it, my body became a blade drawn from fire. Power rushed through my veins with such violence that the floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Not strength alone. Something else. Something older. Something that did not belong to me. The rogue leapt for Nicole with its mouth open. Hunger, making an animal of what had once been a man. I caught him by the throat in midair. His eyes widened. Good. I drove him backward through the prep room door. The wood cracked, hinges screamed. We struck the steel table hard enough to send the corpse sliding to the floor in a heavy, wet collapse. The rogue clawed at my wrist, but I tightened my grip until cartilage gave beneath my fingers. Black Fang, he choked, trying to laugh through the crush of my hand. You tasted her. I slammed his skull into the edge of the table. Once. Twice. The third time, bone split. Speak again, I said, and I will remove your tongue first. He hissed, still grinning through blood. You don't know what she is. I hated that he was right. Behind me, Nicole's breathing came fast and uneven. Human lungs, human fear, human pulse. I could hear every beat, too loud, too close, as if her heart had lodged somewhere behind my ribs. Impossible. I had fed from hundreds, thousands perhaps, not for pleasure, not for indulgence. Feeding was a function, a transaction of survival. Blood entered my mouth, strength returned. The body became irrelevant, but Nicole Williams had not been irrelevant. The moment my fangs entered her throat, she had invaded me. A child's laughter, a grandmother's hands, the scent of funeral lilies, a cedar box hidden beneath a bed, a kitchen soaked in grief, a warning spoken in a voice the woman herself had forgotten. Never let the dead thing drink. Then that whisper. Let him choke on what he takes. I pressed my thumb beneath the rogue's jaw until his fangs snapped together. What did you know about her? I asked. His smile twitched wider. Enough to want a taste. I broke his neck. It would not kill him. Not permanently. Rogues survived injury, like vermin survived rot. So I took the silver blade he had used on me from where it had skidded beneath the sink, drove it through his sternum, and pinned him to the floor. He screamed then. The sound scraped along the tile, high and furious, rattling the glass jars on the counter. Nicole flinched. I felt it before I saw it. A sharp pulse of fear that struck the inside of my skull. I turned my head. She stood in the hallway with one hand pressed to her throat. Blood slipped between her fingers and tracked down the side of her neck. Her brown eyes were wide, but not empty. Not obedient. She was afraid, yes, but there was anger beneath it. Useful. Fear made most humans stupid. Anger could keep them alive. The rogue convulsed beneath me, blackening around the silver. His nails tore uselessly at the floor. I crouched, caught his chin, and forced him to look at me. You fed without sanction, I said. You exposed our kind. You attacked under my jurisdiction. He spat blood onto my coat. Your jurisdiction ends tonight. Does it? I twisted the blade. His scream broke apart. I leaned closer. Tell whatever hell takes you that Cassian Devereux sent you there. Then I tore the blade free and opened his throat down to the spine. His body shuddered once. The veins beneath his skin darkened, spreading like ink in water. Within seconds, flesh collapsed inward, muscle and bone reducing to a charred, brittle ruin. The stench filled the room. Nicole made a sound behind me, not a scream. A swallowed curse. I rose and turned to her. The silver wound in my side had begun to close, but slowly. Too slowly. Her blood burned through me, repairing damage while unraveling something far deeper. My senses sharpened until the room became unbearable. Formaldehyde, rainwater, human sweat, her blood, her fear, her heartbeat. Again. 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 I crossed the room. Nicole backed up one step. Only one. Either she was brave, concussed, or too furious to be sensible. Don't come near me, she said. I stopped because the command surprised me, not because I was inclined to obey it. You should be dead, I said. Her hand tightened at her throat. Sorry to disappoint you. A humorless breath escaped me. You have no idea what has happened here. I have a pretty good idea. Her gaze flicked to the dead thing on the floor, then to the ruined body near the table, then back to my mouth. You bit me. Yes. You're not denying it? Would that comfort you? Her lips parted, but no answer came. I studied her. Mortuary assistant. 26, according to the identification badge clipped to her scrub top. Nicole Williams. She should have been ordinary. Warm-blooded. Mortal. Disposable, if necessity required it. Instead, her blood had shown me memories. No human blood did that, unless the old stories were true. The cursed bloodline, the bride blood, the leash blood, the myth whispered through courts by vampires, old enough to fear desire more than sunlight. I had heard the legends as a child and dismissed them as cautionary filth, stories told by weak men who mistook obsession for sorcery. A human woman whose blood did not enslave her to the vampire. It enslaved the vampire to her. No. I rejected the thought before it finished forming. My control was not a thing that could be stolen by a woman in a funeral home basement. Nicole lifted her chin. What are you? The reason you are still alive. That's not an answer. It is the only one you've earned. Her eyes hardened. Go to hell. For a moment, I almost smiled. Almost. Instead, I stepped closer. This time, she did not retreat, though her pulse betrayed her. It struck faster, not just fear now. Adrenaline, rage, pain. Her emotions touched me like fingers under my skin. I despised it. "Listen carefully, Nicole Williams," I said. "There will be no police report, no statement, no mention of my name, his body, or what you think you saw tonight." She gave a short, incredulous laugh. "You broke into my job, killed someone, bit me, and now you're giving me instructions?" "Yes." "You're insane." "No, he was insane." I nodded toward the ruin on the floor. "I am disciplined. That's supposed to make me feel better." "I do not care how you feel." The lie struck me strangely. Because I did care. Not morally, not tenderly. I cared because her fear was still echoing in my bones, because her pain pulsed along the edge of my throat, because every drop of blood sliding beneath her fingers drew my attention like a hook. I reached for her wound. She slapped my hand away. The sound cracked through the room. Silence followed. Humans had knelt for less. I looked down at her hand, then slowly back at her face. Nicole swallowed, but she did not apologize. Interesting woman. Dangerous blood. A bad combination. "Do that again," I said quietly, "and I will forget you are frightened." "Touch me again," she said, "and I'll do worse." The absurdity of it might have amused me under different circumstances. She had no weapon, no strength that mattered, no knowledge of the world she had fallen into. Still, she stood there, as if outrage alone could shield her. I caught her gaze, and let power gather in my voice. "You will forget my face," I commanded. "You will forget the bite. You will remember only that a county transport error brought you the wrong body, and by morning, the mistake had been corrected." Her pupils widened. For one breath, the compulsion took hold. Then something moved beneath her skin. Not visibly, not to human eyes, but I felt it. A pressure, a resistance, ancient and cold. Nicole blinked. Then she whispered, "Don't do that again." The room went very still. Compulsion had failed. Mine had failed. I had bent nobles, soldiers, priests, killers. I had made men open their own veins and thank me for the privilege. Humans were simple instruments when one knew where to place the note. But Nicole Williams had heard my command and remained herself. The silver wound in my side throbbed. The bite mark on her neck bled. I should have killed her. The thought came cleanly, practically. If she was what I feared, she was a threat to me, to my clan, to the secrecy that kept our world intact. Killing her now would prevent disorder. One broken neck, one staged accident, one more body in a building made for them. My hand flexed. Nicole saw it. Her breathing changed. Again, that emotion struck me. Fear, yes, but laced with defiance so sharp it cut through the curse whisper in my blood. I turned away before instinct became action. From inside my coat, I took out my phone and sent 3 messages. The first to my cleaners. The second to the magistrate who owed me silence. The third to the coroner whose debts were older than his children. Within 20 minutes, no evidence of the rogue would remain. Within an hour, the county record would show the John Doe had been redirected before arrival. By dawn, Bellwether and Sons would have a new lock, a repaired door, and staff who remembered a gas leak in the basement. Humans built their world on paper. Vampires survived by knowing how easily paper burned. "You'll stay here until my people leave," I said. "Your people? You do not want to meet them. I don't want to meet you either, but here we are." I moved toward the delivery entrance. "Wait," she snapped. I stopped at the threshold. Her voice shifted, losing none of its anger, but gaining something more dangerous. Certainty. What happens if I tell someone? I looked back at her. Rain streaked the small window behind her. Blood marked her throat. Her curls framed a face, set hard against panic. She should have looked breakable. She did not. If you speak of this, I said, everyone you tell becomes part of the cleanup. Her expression changed. There it was. Not fear for herself, fear for others. A useful weakness. A dangerous one. You son of a bitch, she whispered. Yes, I said. Remember that. Then I left her standing among the dead. The night air struck me cold and wet as I stepped into the alley. My driver waited at the end of the lane with the engine running and the rear door open. He knew better than to ask why my coat was torn, why my blood steamed beneath the rain, or why I paused halfway to the car with my hand pressed against my side. Because I heard it again. A heartbeat. Not mine. Never mine. Hers. I closed my eyes. The sound remained. Steady. Human. Impossible. I got into the car, and the city slid by in black glass and rain. 5 blocks, 10, a mile, then 3. Still. It followed. Nicole Williams should have faded with distance. Her scent should have vanished. Her fear should have become irrelevant. I had left the mortuary. I had left the body, the blood, the ruined evidence, and the woman behind. But her heartbeat stayed inside my skull. By the time Devereux House rose ahead of me through the rain, I understood one thing with absolute clarity. The bite had not claimed her. It had marked me.
By morning, Bellwether and Sons smelled like bleach and lies. The prep room had been scrubbed so clean it looked staged. No broken cabinet doors, no blood burned into the grout, no blackened ruin where the creature's body had collapsed in on itself. The delivery entrance had a new lock, shiny enough to look ridiculous against the old warped wood. Even the John Doe was gone. Not transferred, not signed out. Gone. I stood in the doorway with a bandage taped to the side of my throat, and the kind of headache that made light feel personal. My scrub top from last night was sealed inside a trash bag in my locker, stiff with dried blood I hadn't been brave enough to examine too closely. Mr. Bellwether called at 7:13. "Nikki, thank God you're all right," he said, voice crackling through my phone. "Fire department said it was a gas leak." I closed my eyes. "A gas leak," I repeated. "That's what the emergency contractor told me. Said you called it in. Said you were shaken up and went home. I didn't call anyone." A pause, then softer, confused. "Honey, yes you did." The room tilted. I gripped the doorframe until my knuckles ached. "Mr. Bellwether, did you see the body they brought in last night?" "What body?" My mouth went dry. "The county transport. John Doe. Male. Throat trauma." Another pause. Longer this time. "Nikki," he said carefully, "county never brought us anyone last night. You must have inhaled more gas than you realized. I want you to take the day off." There it was. The world rewritten in one phone call. I looked at the steel table where a corpse had lain less than 8 hours ago. I could still hear the thud of his arm sliding over the edge, could still see the creature's grin, red and wet, as it whispered, "Pretty heart." And Cassian Devereux, his mouth on my throat, his voice in the cold. "Stay still." My stomach rolled. "I'll take the day," I said. "Good. And go to urgent care if that headache doesn't clear." I almost laughed. What was I supposed to tell a nurse? A vampire bit me in the embalming room, and now everyone remembers a gas leak except me? "Yeah," I said. "I will." I didn't. I drove home with every door locked, and one hand touching the bandage at my neck. The morning sun spread gold across wet streets, making the city look too normal for what had happened under it. People walked dogs. Buses hissed at curbs. A man in a business suit balanced coffee in one hand and a phone in the other. The world had no idea monsters used it as scenery. My apartment felt smaller than usual when I got inside. 3rd floor, 1 bedroom, radiator that clanked like chains in winter, plants on the windowsill I was constantly forgetting to water, a framed photograph of my mother and grandmother on the bookshelf, both of them smiling like they hadn't spent half their lives carrying secrets. I locked the door, then the deadbolt. Then I dragged a chair under the handle because apparently I had become that woman. In the bathroom, I peeled away the bandage. The bite had not closed. 2 punctures sat high on the side of my throat, surrounded by dark bruising against my brown skin. The edges should have clotted. They should have started sealing. Instead, they looked fresh, angry, as if his teeth had left something behind that my body couldn't push out. I leaned closer to the mirror. The wound pulsed, not with my heartbeat, with something slower, colder. I touched 1 puncture with trembling fingers. The bathroom vanished. Stone rose around me. Not my stone. Not the old tile of Bellwether's basement. This was black marble and ancient walls. Tall windows shrouded in velvet. Candle flames trembling in iron sconces. The air smelled like smoke, old blood, and winter roses. A man knelt on the floor. No, a vampire. I knew it somehow. Felt it in the shape of him, in the unnatural stillness of his body even as he shook. His hands were bound behind his back with silver wire. His mouth bled around broken fangs. Cassian stood before him. Not the wounded man from the funeral home. Not the intruder with rain on his coat. This Cassian wore black formal clothes cut like armor, a silver blade resting loose in one hand. His face held no anger, no pleasure, nothing at all. That emptiness was worse. Mercy, the kneeling vampire begged. Around them others watched from the shadows, beautiful faces, cold eyes, jewels at throats, rings on fingers, a court dressed for a funeral that had not happened yet. Someone whispered, "The Black Fang." Cassian lifted the blade. The vampire screamed before the strike fell. I jerked back into my bathroom with a cry, knocking bottles into the sink. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, chest heaving. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I grabbed a towel and pressed it to my neck. My knees threatened to fold, so I sat hard on the closed toilet lid and tried to breathe the way grief counselors told families to breathe when they realized the casket was really going into the ground. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Again, again. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Cassian walking through a hall lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow him. Cassian standing over bodies that did not stay dead long enough to be human. Cassian listening to some old vampire woman call him Prince with fear tucked behind the word. Prince. Executioner. Monster. My hands shook so badly I dropped the towel. On my bookshelf, the framed photo of my grandmother caught the bathroom light. She had been dead 6 years, but suddenly I heard her voice like she was standing in the hallway. Never let the dead thing drink. I had thought that was one of her church sayings, one of those strange warnings old people carried from childhood and wrapped in superstition. Don't whistle at night. Don't sweep over someone's feet. Don't let the dead thing drink. I pressed my fingers against my mouth. "What did you know?" I whispered to the photograph. The radiator clicked. I flinched so hard pain shot through my skull. That was when the fear hit me. Not ordinary fear, not the kind that moved through me in a clean line. This was too big, too sharp. It burst out of me like a flare, and the instant it did, something answered. The bathroom vanished again. This time, I was not in a memory. I was in a room where everything watched. A long chamber, high ceiling, dark wood. Moonlight pressed against narrow windows. Vampires stood in a half circle, silent as knives. Cassian stood at the center, one hand braced on the edge of a table, his other pressed against his wounded side, He was speaking. Then he stopped. His head turned. Not toward anyone in the room. Toward me. My breath caught. Across whatever impossible distance separated us, his eyes found mine. For 1 second I felt him feel me. My fear struck him like a blow. His fingers tightened around the table until the wood cracked beneath his grip. A vampire near him said, "My lord?" Cassian did not answer. His jaw flexed. The controlled mask on his face fractured, just enough for something furious and bewildered to show through. Then a woman's voice, smooth and cruel, said from the shadows, "You fed from the gall." Cassian's eyes sharpened. The chamber went still. The vision tore away. I was back in my bathroom, gasping, one hand clamped over my throat. A thin line of blood had slipped past my fingers. The bite had opened again. My phone rang. I screamed before I could stop myself. The sound bounced off the tile and died. The screen glowed from the counter. Unknown number. I stared at it until it stopped. Then it rang again. Every sensible part of me said not to answer. Every survival instinct I had left said the same thing. I picked it up anyway. For 3 seconds there was only silence. Then Cassian Devereux's voice moved through the line, low and controlled, but not calm enough to hide the danger beneath it. "What are you?" he asked. My blood turned cold. Before I could answer, someone knocked on my apartment door. The knock came again. 3 patient taps. Not loud, not frantic. Somehow that made it worse. I stood in my bathroom with Cassian Devereux breathing silence through my phone and blood drying beneath my fingers. "Are you at my door?" I asked. "Yes." My stomach dropped so hard I almost reached for the sink. On the other side of the line, his voice stayed low, controlled. "Open it." I laughed once, sharp and empty. "Absolutely not." "Nicole." He said my name like it belonged in his mouth. It didn't. I backed out of the bathroom, keeping the phone pressed to my ear, and grabbed the biggest knife from the block on my kitchen counter. My hand shook around the handle, but I held it anyway. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. You already know what happens to police reports near me." My eyes flicked toward the door. The chair I'd wedged beneath the handle suddenly looked ridiculous. Small. Human. A cheap wooden promise against a thing that had torn another creature apart in a funeral home basement. "How did you find my apartment?" "You rent under your legal name," he said. "You wear an employee badge. You drive a car registered to this address. Privacy is a modern superstition. Stalking is still stalking. Open the door." "No." The lock clicked. My breath stopped. The deadbolt turned slowly, metal grinding as if something on the other side had reached through the door and twisted it by hand. The chair scraped across the floor an inch. Then another. I tightened my grip on the knife. "Don't." The door opened. The chair tipped sideways and clattered onto the floor. Cassian Devereux stepped into my apartment like he had every right to cross the threshold. Morning light pressed through the living room blinds, striping the floor in gold, but he stayed just outside it. His black coat was buttoned high, his dark hair damp at the ends, his face carved into that same beautiful, merciless stillness. He ended the call without looking at his phone. I raised the knife. He glanced at it. "Your grip is wrong." "I'm not taking notes. You'll break your wrist before you cut me. Come closer and we can both learn something." For 1 second, something almost moved across his mouth. Not a smile. The ghost of one, maybe. Then his gaze dropped to my throat, and whatever humor might have lived there died. The bite throbbed beneath my fingers. His eyes sharpened. "You're still bleeding. Whose fault is that?" "You should have healed by now. You keep saying things like I'm defective." I stepped back as he moved farther inside. "Maybe your teeth are the problem." His attention lifted to my face. "My teeth have never done this before." "Congratulations. First time for everything." He looked around my apartment with insulting calm. The plants on the windowsill, the blanket on the couch, The stack of mortuary science textbooks on the coffee table. The framed photograph of my mother and grandmother on the shelf. His eyes stopped there. "Don't look at her," I said. He ignored me. "Your grandmother." My grip tightened around the knife. "Leave her out of this. She warned you." I went still. His gaze slid back to mine. "Never let the dead thing drink." The words hit like a hand around my throat. I had not told him that. I had barely remembered it myself until his bite dragged it out of whatever locked room grief had left inside me. "You were in my head," I whispered. "You were in mine. That wasn't on purpose. Neither was this." The quiet fury beneath his voice made the air feel smaller. I saw it then. Not fear exactly, not the way humans wore it, but something close, something that did not belong on a man like him. His control was still there, cold and precise, but cracks ran through it now, and somehow I was inside those cracks. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Answers." "I don't have any. You have a bloodline." "I have a family," I snapped. "Not a specimen chart." His jaw tightened. "Names?" "No." "Maternal line?" "Grandmother, great-grandmother." "Any stories about women in your family dying violently? Men going mad around them? Clergy calling them cursed? Doctors calling them hysterical?" The knife dipped before I could stop it. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "What did she tell you?" he demanded. "My grandmother told me plenty of things. Don't whistle at night. Don't sweep over somebody's feet. Don't trust men who smile too much." I lifted my chin. Turns out she forgot don't let vampires pick your locks before breakfast. "I am not here to be mocked. No, you're here to threaten the woman you bit and then abandoned." His eyes darkened. The room seemed to tighten around us. Then pain lanced through my throat, sudden and hot. I sucked in a breath and pressed my palm to the bandage. Fresh blood warmed my fingers. Cassian went utterly still. His nostrils flared. I saw hunger hit him. Not the theatrical kind from movies. No dramatic snarl, no red eyes. Just a terrible focus, as if every part of him had narrowed down to the space between my fingers and my skin. I backed into the kitchen counter. He followed. "Stay away from me. I am trying." The confession was worse than a threat. He braced one hand on the counter beside me, caging me without touching. Close enough that I could feel the cold coming off him. Close enough to see the faint mark where the rogue's silver blade had torn his side. The wound should have killed him. Instead, it was sealing, slow and ugly beneath the edge of his torn shirt. "My blood did that?" I asked. "Yes." "Good. I hope it hurts." "It does." The answer stole whatever I'd been about to say. His gaze stayed on mine. "When you were afraid this morning, I felt it, in a room full of my own kind. I nearly killed a courtier because your hands were shaking in this apartment. That sounds like a you problem. For centuries, everything I did was a me problem." His voice dropped. "Tonight, I am no longer certain." I hated the way those words settled into my skin. I hated more that I believed him. "What did you do to me?" I asked. "I did not turn you." "Then what? Is this how vampires make people theirs?" His expression changed, just slightly. But I saw it. Disgust. Not at me. At the idea. "No. Don't lie to me. If you had become mine, you would have obeyed." His eyes flicked to my throat again. "You would have forgotten. You would want to come when I called. You would not be standing here with a knife and enough rage to make your pulse skip. I don't want you." "I know." The way he said it made my chest tighten. I swallowed. "Then what happened?" Cassian looked at me as if the answer offended every law he had ever lived by. "You did not become mine," he said. The apartment went quiet except for my heartbeat. "Then what happened?" His mouth barely moved. "I became yours." The words did not sound romantic. They sounded like chains dragged over concrete. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then I laughed. because if I didn't, I might have started screaming. "No," I said. "Absolutely not. I do not accept delivery. This is not a contract." "Great, because I didn't sign anything." "It is a curse." That sobered me. Cassian's face hardened again, but now I understood it better. The coldness was not absence. It was restraint. He was holding something back with both hands, and whatever it was wanted through. "Old bloodlines," he said. "Human women cursed to ruin any vampire foolish enough to feed from them. The stories were supposed to be extinct. Your mistake was thinking my family needed your permission to survive." His gaze sharpened. I leaned toward him despite every instinct begging me not to. "You bit me. You took something that wasn't offered. If that curse is real, then maybe it did exactly what it was supposed to do." A muscle moved in his jaw. For one wild second, I thought he might kill me. Instead, he moved back. Not far, but enough. The strip of sunlight from the blinds lay between us. I reached for the cord and yanked hard. The blinds snapped open wider, spilling harsh morning light across the floor. Cassian recoiled before it touched him fully. A thin curl of smoke rose from the edge of his hand where one beam caught his knuckles. I stared. "Well," I said, breathless, "that's useful." His eyes cut to mine. "Do not mistake injury for defeat. Do not mistake fear for obedience." Something changed in the hallway outside my apartment. I didn't hear it at first. Cassian did. His head turned toward the door, every part of him going predator still. "What?" I whispered. He lifted one finger. A warning. Then I heard it. A soft step beyond the door. A breath held too long. Cassian moved so fast I barely saw him cross the room. One moment he was near the kitchen. The next he stood between me and the entrance, his body angled like a weapon. "Pack a bag," he said. I stared at his back. "Excuse me?" "They found you faster than expected." "Who found me?" Before he could answer, a woman's voice drifted through the door, smooth as silk and cruel enough to cut. "Cassian, darling," she called. "We know she's inside." My blood went cold. I knew that voice. From the marble room, from the shadows. Cassian's fangs slid down, silent and deadly. "Nicole," he said without looking at me. "Get away from the door."
The woman outside Nicole's door was named Celine Voss, and she had smiled through more executions than most vampires had survived. She was not alone. I heard 3 heartless bodies in the hallway. One near the stairwell, one beside the elevator. Celine at the door. Close enough that her perfume seeped through the wood-black orchid, old blood, and arrogance. She had followed me from the council chamber, then waited until daylight trapped most of my kind indoors. Clever, not clever enough. Behind me, Nicole stood in her kitchen with a knife in one hand and murder in her eyes. I did not turn around. "Bag, now." "You keep saying that like I work for you." "You have 8 seconds before that door opens." Her pulse stuttered. Then anger spiked through it, hot and bright enough to scrape along my nerves. "I hate you," she said. "Yes." "You hear me?" "Constantly." The lock began to turn from the outside. Celine laughed softly through the door. "Must we make this ugly?" I stepped closer to the entrance. "You already have." The door burst inward. Celine crossed the threshold first, dressed in a cream coat, with gloves buttoned to her wrists. Every inch of her, arranged to imply she had never dirtied her hands. That was a lie. I had seen her feed from children during the famine years and call it restraint because she left one breathing. Her gaze found Nicole over my shoulder. Interest sharpened her face. "So it's true," she whispered. "You found one." The vampire behind her moved too quickly toward the kitchen. I removed his head before Nicole could scream. It struck the floor and rolled against the leg of her coffee table, mouth still open in surprise. His body collapsed a heartbeat later. Black blood spread across the floorboards. Nicole made a small, horrified sound. Celine stopped smiling. "You killed Victor," she said. "He entered first. He was under council protection. He was in my way." The third vampire at the stairwell did not enter. Sensible creature. I took one step toward Celine. "Leave." Her eyes lowered to my coat, then to the wound still healing beneath it. "The council wants the girl brought in." "The council can want more quietly." "She is dangerous." My fangs lengthened. "So am I." Celine's gaze flicked to Nicole again, and the hunger in it was immediate. Not feeding hunger. Worse. Political hunger. Ambition had a taste when it entered a room. "Cassian," she said, "careful now. If you bid her, you are compromised. I am aware. You cannot guard what has already leashed you." The word struck too close. Leashed. Nicole's heartbeat hammered behind me, and I felt it answer in my own blood. The urge to put myself between her and every mouth in the city was not reason. It was not honor. It was not mercy. It was something uglier, wearing the shape of protection. I caught Celine by the throat and drove her against the wall. The plaster cracked behind her head. "Tell the council," I said, voice low enough that only monsters should have heard it. "If they send another collector for her, I will hang their fangs over my doors." Celine's fingers curled around my wrist, but she did not fight. She knew better. "And the human?" she rasped. "She leaves with me." Nicole spoke from behind me. "The human has a name." Celine's eyes gleamed. I tightened my grip until her smile vanished. "Use it," I said. Her throat worked beneath my hand. "Nicole Williams." At the sound of Nicole's name in Celine's mouth, violence rose in me so suddenly, I nearly tore her open. I released her instead. Not because she deserved mercy, because Nicole was watching. That irritated me more than the restraint itself. "Go," I said. Selena smoothed her coat, as if dignity could be repaired with fabric. She stepped over Victor's body and withdrew into the hallway, taking the surviving vampire with her. When the stairwell door closed, Nicole exhaled shakily. "You just killed a man in my living room." He was not a man. That does not improve things. I looked down at the blood spreading toward her rug. "Pack faster." She stared at me, as if I were the worst thing the world had produced, and she was still deciding whether to stab me for it. Then she disappeared into the bedroom and began throwing clothes into a duffel bag with furious, uneven movements. I made 2 calls. By the time I finished, Victor's body had begun to darken at the edges. A cleanup team would arrive in 7 minutes. Nicole returned in 5, wearing a dark jacket and carrying the bag like she intended to swing it at my head. "Where are you taking me?" "Devereux House." "That sounds like a place people don't leave. Not without permission." Her eyes narrowed. "You're proving my point." I took the bag from her hand. She tried to yank it back. I did not let her. "You may hate me in the car," I said. "Quietly, if possible. I hope your house burns down. So have several governments." That silenced her for half a second. Only half. "You're not funny." I wasn't joking. The car waited in the alley behind her building, windows blackened against the day. Nicole hesitated when she saw it. Fear lifted from her skin, and instantly it was inside me, a tightness in the chest, a cold pressure beneath the sternum. I hated her for it. I hated the bite. I hated that when her hand drifted to the bandage on her throat, my attention followed as if dragged by wire. "Get in," I ordered. She did, but only after looking at me like obedience was a temporary strategy. Good. If she became meek, the curse had changed shape. I sat across from her as the car pulled away from the curb. Sunlight flashed over the windows in dull silver sheets. Nicole kept her face turned toward the city, but her reflection watched me in the glass. "You said protection," she said. "I did. This feels like kidnapping. It is possible for a thing to be both." Her reflection went still. "You admit that? I find denial inefficient." "You are a nightmare, among other things." Her fear moved again, but beneath it was thought. Calculation. She was cataloging exits, weaknesses, timings, human odds against immortal violence. Hopeless. Still, I preferred the calculation to collapse. The city thinned as we drove north. Brick storefronts gave way to old estates hidden behind iron gates and winter-stripped trees. Devereux House waited at the end of a private road, its black stone walls rising from the fog like something dug out of a grave and taught to stand. Nicole leaned forward despite herself. "Of course you live there," she muttered. The house did not welcome. It judged. Every window was narrow, every arch too high. Gargoyles crouched along the roofline, their mouths open as if still laughing at whatever had died beneath them. My ancestors had built the place when this country was still young enough to pretend it had no monsters. We had encouraged the illusion. The gates opened before the car stopped. Inside the main hall, the clan waited. Not all of them. Enough. A dozen vampires stood beneath the chandelier, dressed in dark silk and tailored wool, their conversations dying as Nicole crossed the threshold beside me. The scent of her blood slipped through the room despite the bandage. Every face turned. Every body went still. Nicole felt it. Her shoulders squared. Brave woman, doomed instinct. A murmur passed through them. Human. Bitten. By whom? I removed my gloves finger by finger. By me. Silence dropped like a blade. At the far end of the hall, Council Elder Armand Vale stepped forward. He had served my father, then betrayed him politely after his death, which was the only reason he still possessed a head. Beside him stood Mother Verena, older than the house itself, her black eyes fixed on Nicole's throat with ancient recognition. "No," Verena whispered. Armand's expression tightened. "It cannot be." Nicole looked between them. "If someone would like to explain why everyone keeps staring at me like I'm a loaded gun, now would be the time." Verena did not take her eyes off Nicole. The bloodline was extinguished. "Apparently," Nicole said, "you missed somebody." Several vampires recoiled at her tone. I did not. Armand looked at me. "You know what must be done." "No." "You have not heard the order." "I heard it before you spoke." His voice hardened. "If she is cursed blood, she cannot remain alive. Not here, not anywhere. Every vampire who tastes her will be ruined. Every rival clan will want her. Every weak mind in this house will start dreaming of her throat." At that, 3 younger vampires looked away. I marked them. Nicole noticed. Her pulse sharpened again. Armand continued, "You are already compromised. The humane solution is immediate execution." Nicole went very still. For 1 second, her fear filled the hall, and every light above us flickered. I moved before I decided to. Armand found himself pinned against the marble column, with my hand around his throat, and my blade pressed beneath his jaw. Gasps scattered through the room. I leaned close. Use the word execution near her again. Armand's eyes widened with rage. "This is the curse speaking. Yes, I said. So consider how little control I have left and choose your next breath carefully. Nicole's voice cut through the silence behind me. Cassian, not pleading. Warning. My fingers tightened once before I released Armand. He staggered back, humiliated, furious, alive only because I permitted it. I turned to the room. Nicole Williams is under my protection. Anyone who touches her, speaks to her alone, enters her rooms, or looks at her throat for too long, will answer to me. That sounds a lot like ownership, Nicole said. I looked back at her. Her chin was lifted, but I felt the tremor beneath her anger. She had been dragged from her home, brought into a den of predators, and threatened with death before removing her coat. Still, she challenged me. Still, the curse in my blood reached for her like a starving thing. If I meant to own you, Nicole, I said coldly, you would already be on your knees. I am keeping them from tearing you apart. Her eyes flashed with hatred. Good. Hatred was safer than gratitude. Mother Verena stepped closer, slow and careful. My prince, if she sleeps beneath this roof tonight, the house will hear her blood. Then the house will learn discipline. Verena's gaze shifted from Nicole to me. For the first time in centuries, the old woman looked afraid. Discipline, she said softly, is the first thing her kind destroys. And beneath her words, Nicole's heartbeat filled my skull again, steady as a drum calling every monster home. Nicole's heartbeat did not remain in the hall. It followed me up the black staircase, through the portrait gallery, beyond doors warded with iron, ash, and old vows. Every step I took away from her made it louder, not softer. Human, steady, impossible, mine to hear, not mine to command. I put her in the south guest suite because it had 3 tall windows and sunlight at dawn. She noticed immediately. You're giving me a room with sunlight? She asked. I'm giving you a weapon. Her hand went to the bandage at her throat. Against them? Against anyone. Her eyes narrowed. Including you? Especially me. That silenced her, though only briefly. Nicole Williams did not stay silent long. It was becoming one of the more irritating facts of my existence. The suite had once belonged to a Devereux bride who survived 6 months in this house before walking into the sea. The wallpaper was dark green, the bed was carved walnut, the fireplace had been cleaned and laid fresh. A human might have called it elegant. Nicole looked around and said, So this is the expensive version of a cage. Yes. Her gaze cut to me. You don't even deny it? Would denial make you more comfortable? No, but it might make you less unbearable. I have never been accused of that. I'm sure you haven't. I placed her bag beside the wardrobe and turned toward the 2 guards stationed outside the door. Young vampires. Too young to hide the way their attention kept drifting to the bandage on her neck. I spoke without raising my voice. If either of you enters this room, I will remove your hands first. If either of you speaks to her without permission, I will remove your tongue. If either of you inhales too deeply near this door, I will assume you are considering a mistake. Both lowered their eyes. Nicole stared at me. That was horrifying. It was specific. That doesn't make it better. No, it makes it understood. I shut the door, leaving us alone. Her fear rose at once. It hit me beneath the ribs, sharp enough to make my fingers curl. I had felt fear before. I had caused it, studied it, followed it through battlefield fog and candlelit chambers. Fear had a scent, a rhythm, a useful predictability. Nicole's fear did not remain outside me. It entered. A human might have called it sympathy. I knew better. It was invasion. Stop doing that, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. Breathing? Being afraid. For a moment, she only stared. Then she laughed. Not because anything was amusing, but because rage needed a door and laughter was the nearest one. You kidnapped me, dragged me into Vampire Murder Mansion, and introduced me to a room full of people who voted for my execution. But sure, I'll try not to make you uncomfortable. At her anger, pain broke through my jaw. My fangs ached. Not hunger, not exactly. Something worse. Her pulse sharpened, hot with fury, and my body answered like anger was blood spilling across my tongue. I turned away before she saw too much. She saw anyway. What was that? She asked. Nothing. Your fangs came out. They do that. When I got mad, I looked back at her. Nicole's expression changed. The fear did not vanish, but curiosity moved through it. Mortuary assistant, I reminded myself. A woman trained to notice what others missed. Does my anger hurt you? She asked. No. She stepped closer and said, Liar. The word struck harder than it should have. My fangs throbbed again. Nicole watched my mouth, and a slow, dangerous understanding passed over her face. Good, she said softly. Something in me approved of her cruelty. That concerned me. You should not enjoy this, I said. You bit me without asking. You broke into my home. You brought me here. If the universe found one way to make you suffer for it, I'm not going to apologize. No, I said. I don't expect you to. Her hand moved to the bandage again. She touched the edge, and pain flashed through my throat. I caught the bedpost hard enough that the wood groaned. Nicole froze. Then, very deliberately, she pressed 2 fingers beside the wound. The pain sliced deeper. My vision narrowed. Stop. Her eyes widened at my voice, but she did not move her hand away. You feel that too? Yes. All of it? Enough. She lowered her hand slowly. Something like uncertainty crossed her face. Not pity. She was too intelligent to waste that on me. Understanding, perhaps. That was more dangerous. You're trapped in this too, she said. I straightened. Do not mistake consequence for innocence. I'm not. You're still the monster in the room. Yes. But the chain goes around your throat too. I said nothing. The truth needed no assistance. A sound stirred beyond the door. Not a knock, not speech. A breath. Nicole heard it a second after I did. Her fear spiked so violently, the chandelier trembled above us. I was at the door before thought formed. The guard on the left stood too close, his lips parted, pupils blown wide with hunger. His name was Dorian. I remembered him as a child, trailing after his sire in the old Paris houses, desperate to prove he was not weak. He was weak now. My prince, he whispered, though his eyes were on Nicole behind me. I seized him by the throat and drove him across the corridor, into the opposite wall. Stone cracked. His companion fled 3 steps before discipline remembered itself and held him still. Dorian clawed at my wrist. I didn't touch her. You wanted to. I smelled. I slammed him into the wall again. Finish that sentence. His fangs retracted. Terror replaced hunger. Good. Nicole appeared in the doorway behind me. Cassian. My name from her mouth tore through the violence like a blade through cloth. I did not release him. Cassian, she said again, quieter. Don't kill him, because I got scared. The absurdity of it nearly made me laugh. She thought this mercy was hers to order. Worse, some part of me listened. I dropped Dorian. He hit the floor and stayed there, choking uselessly. I looked to the other guard. Bring Mother Verena, and if he moves before she arrives, remove his eyes. The guard bowed and vanished. Nicole stared at Dorian, then at me. This is what happens when I'm afraid? Yes. You try to kill whatever caused it? Yes. Her throat worked as she swallowed. That's not protection. No. It is instinct wearing a better coat. She backed into the room, but she did not close the door. I followed because the scent of blood had begun again. The bandage had shifted during the commotion. A thin line slid down her brown skin, disappearing beneath the collar of her shirt. My entire body went still. Nicole noticed. Of course she noticed. Don't, she said. I am not moving. You're looking. I can see blood from across a battlefield. This is not a battlefield. It is becoming one. She pressed her palm over the bite, and pain answered in my own throat. I inhaled once, slowly, through my nose. Mistake. Her scent filled me. Blood, fear, anger, warm living skin, and beneath it, something sudden and shame-struck that neither of us invited. Desire. Not trust, not permission, not surrender. A reaction. A spark thrown from terror, proximity, and the curse winding itself through both of us. It hit me with such force I stepped back. My spine struck the wall. Nicole's eyes went wide, then hard. Don't you dare act like I did that on purpose. I know you didn't. My voice was rougher than I allowed it to be. The hunger in me changed shape. It was no longer only her blood calling. It was her breath catching, her pulse stumbling, the furious heat of her embarrassment feeding directly into my nerves. I closed my hand around the edge of the mantle until marble cracked beneath my fingers. Nicole saw that too. For the first time since I had brought her here, she looked less angry than disturbed. It hurts you, she said. Everything does. That doesn't make you safe. No. The single word sat between us, cleaner than any lie. Outside the room, distant footsteps approached. Verena, slow and ancient. Others behind her. Nicole lifted her chin, but I felt exhaustion settling under her rage. Too much fear, too much pain, too much knowledge forced into one human body. She looked at me, as if she hated that she understood me even a little. I'm not your addiction, she said. No, I'm not your excuse either. My gaze fixed on hers. Then do not become my weakness. Before she could answer, the heartbeat in my skull changed. Not faster, missing. One beat vanished, then another. Nicole frowned, touching her chest as if she felt it too. From the corridor below, someone screamed, and under the scream came the scent of her blood, carried through Devereux House like a bell calling every vampire to prayer.
The scream from downstairs split the room open. Cassian moved first. 1 second he stood beside the ruined mantle, his hand still clenched hard enough to crack marble. The next, he was at the door with his body angled between me and the hallway, fangs down, eyes fixed on something I couldn't hear. I hated that my first instinct was to step closer to him. I hated even more that he knew it. Stay behind me, he said. I am getting tired of you confusing commands with conversation. Then be tired alive. Before I could answer, Mother Verena appeared in the corridor. She wore black from throat to floor, her silver hair braided tight against her skull. 2 vampires came with her, both trying very hard not to look at me. That effort scared me more than staring would have. Verena's gaze dropped to the blood on my collar. The house smells her, she said. Cassian's voice turned lethal. Where is Dorian? One of the vampires shifted. Gone, my prince. The hallway seemed to shrink. Cassian looked at him slowly. Gone. He killed Adrian at the stairwell. tore through the east passage before we could... Cassian seized him by the front of his coat and lifted him an inch off the floor. Before you could what? The vampire said nothing. Because there was no good answer. A cold trickle of fear moved down my spine. Dorian, the guard Cassian had slammed into the wall, the one whose eyes had gone fixed and hungry when he looked at my throat. Verina's expression didn't change, but her voice lowered. He was always weak. He was placed outside her door, Cassian said. By the council, Verina replied. There it was. Not an accident, not a mistake, a test. My stomach twisted. You all wanted to see what would happen, I said. No one answered fast enough. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You put a starving vampire outside my door to test my blood, like I'm some kind of lab sample? Cassian turned his head toward Verina, very slowly. The ancient woman did not flinch, but the two vampires beside her stepped back. I did not approve it, she said. But you knew, I said. Her black eyes met mine. Knowing is how one survives in this house. Funny. I was just thinking silence is how people die here. Cassian released the vampire with a shove that sent him stumbling into the wall. Seal the passages. They already are, Verina said. Not all of them. For the first time, uncertainty moved across her face. Cassian looked back at me. Windows. Curtains open. Do not leave the sunlight. I glanced toward the tall windows. Heavy drapes framed them, keeping the afternoon glare to a few bright lines across the floor. What are you going to do? Find him. Then what? His face gave me the answer before his mouth did. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt sick. Cassian stepped to the hallway and caught the doorframe with one hand. Nicole. I stiffened at my name. Do not pity what comes for you. Then he was gone. The door shut. Locks clicked. More than locks, I realized a second later. Something older moved through the wood, a low vibration that pressed against my teeth. A ward, a cage with expensive wallpaper. I stood in the center of the room, one hand over my bleeding throat and one eye on the sunlight. The scream downstairs had stopped. That was worse. I crossed to the windows and yanked the curtains wide. Light poured across the floor in hard gold sheets. Dust swirled in it like ash. I dragged a chair into the brightest patch and stood there, breathing too fast, listening for footsteps I couldn't hear. The mansion had its own noises. Pipes groaned, old wood settled. Somewhere far below, something heavy struck stone. Then came the sound behind the wardrobe. A scrape, soft, careful. My body locked. I turned. The wardrobe stood against the far wall, tall and dark, carved with roses that looked more like thorns. At first, nothing happened. Then it shifted. Not much. An inch. Just enough to reveal black space behind it. Cassian? I called, already knowing it wasn't him. A hand slid through the gap. Long fingers. Torn nails. Blood under them. Dorian pulled himself into the room like something crawling out of a grave. His face was smeared with black vampire blood. His mouth trembled around his fangs. One side of his coat hung ripped from shoulder to waist, and smoke rose faintly from where sunlight touched his sleeve. He didn't seem to notice. His eyes were on me. Only me. I only need a taste, he whispered. My hand flew behind me, searching the table, the lamp, anything. My fingers closed around a brass candlestick. Stay back. He smiled, but it broke halfway through. You smell like judgment. That is the weirdest thing anyone has ever said to me. I heard your heart through the walls. He took a step, then another, careful to avoid the direct sunlight. He hears it too, doesn't he? Our prince, the Black Fang brought low by a human woman. I didn't bring anybody anywhere. But your blood did. His voice cracked. Hunger and envy twisted through every word. If it chained him, what would it do to me? You just murdered someone downstairs to find out? He tried to stop me. And that seemed reasonable to you? Dorian's gaze flicked to the bandage on my neck. His whole body shuddered. I raised the candlestick higher. Do not come near me. I won't hurt you. Everybody with fangs keeps saying that right before they absolutely hurt me. He lunged. I swung the candlestick with everything I had. It connected with his cheek, bone cracking beneath the blow. He barely slowed. His hand closed around my wrist and squeezed until pain shot up my arm. I screamed and slammed my knee into him, but he was stone and hunger and too much speed. He dragged me out of the sunlight. No, I gasped. His mouth found the inside of my forearm. Then he bit. Pain exploded white-hot through my body. Not like Cassian's bite. Cassian's had been violence sharpened by desperation. This was greed. This was an experiment. This was someone breaking open a locked door just to see what screamed behind it. My knees buckled. Dorian drank once. Only once. Then he tore himself away with a sound that wasn't human and wasn't sane. He staggered back, hand clamped over his mouth. His eyes went wide. Black veins threaded beneath the skin at his temples. He shook as if something had climbed inside him and started rearranging bones. "Oh," he breathed. The ward on the door shattered. Cassian entered like death given a body. Dorian spun, putting himself between me and Cassian. Between me and danger, as if he were protecting me. "Don't touch her," Dorian snarled. Cassian stopped. Not because he was afraid, because I was on the floor between them, clutching my bleeding arm, and every drop hitting the rug was making the room worse. Dorian backed toward me without looking away from Cassian. "She called me." "I did not," I said through clenched teeth. He didn't hear me. Or he couldn't. "She needs me," Dorian said. His voice broke apart on the words. "I can feel it. Her pain, her fear. All of it. It's mine now. She's mine." Cassian's face went still in a way that made the air feel thin. "No," he said. Dorian laughed, a wet, terrible sound. "You feel it too. That's why you're angry. You thought only you deserved the leash." Cassian moved. Dorian met him halfway. They hit the wall hard enough to split stone. I scrambled backward, dragging my bleeding arm against my chest. Verena appeared in the doorway with 3 vampires behind her, but none of them crossed the threshold. Smart. Dorian was no longer the trembling guard from the hallway. He was faster now. Wilder. He tore at Cassian with both hands, fangs bared, screaming my name like it was a prayer and a curse. Cassian fought in silence. That was worse somehow. No wasted sound. No wasted movement. Just precision against madness. Dorian broke free and launched himself toward Verena. "Get away from her!" he roared. Verena stepped back too slowly. Cassian's black blade flashed. Dorian's arm hit the floor. I slapped a hand over my mouth. Dorian didn't even look at the missing limb. He tried to crawl toward me, eyes shining with something horrifyingly close to devotion. "Nicole," he whispered, "I can keep you safe." I stared at him, at the blood on his mouth, at the bodies he had left behind to reach me, at the way he looked at me like I had become the only thing in the world, and if the world came closer, he would burn it down. That wasn't love. It wasn't even desire. It was ruin. My blood did not make monsters gentle. It stripped away whatever discipline kept them from being exactly what they were. "Cassian," I said, voice shaking. He looked at me. For 1 second, the executioner waited. I hated that I understood the question. I hated that the answer was mercy. "Do it," I whispered. Dorian smiled at me like I had blessed him. Then Cassian took his head. The room went silent. Dorian's body collapsed inches from my feet. His blood spread across the rug, dark and thick, mixing with mine in threads that made my stomach roll. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Cassian crossed the room and dropped to one knee in front of me. He did not touch me. That restraint frightened me almost as much as his violence. "Your arm," he said. I held it tighter. Don't. His jaw flexed. I need to stop the bleeding. You need? His eyes lifted to mine. Pain flickered there. Mine, maybe. His. The curse didn't seem to care who owned what anymore. May I see it? He asked. The words were rough, forced, like each one cost him something. I should have said no, but my sleeve was soaked, my fingers were going numb, and every vampire in the hall was staring at my blood like it had started singing. Slowly, I extended my arm. Cassian wrapped his hand around my wrist with clinical care. His skin was cold. Mine was not. When he turned my arm toward the light, his breath stopped. 2 fresh punctures marked the inside of my forearm. The second bite. Verena stepped into the doorway. Now you understand. I looked at her. Understand what? That cursed blood is not romance. It is catastrophe. My eyes dropped to Dorian's body. He had bitten me once and lost himself completely. Cassian had bitten me and was still standing, still speaking, still holding himself back by force of will, so brutal I could almost see the chains of it. How many others will try? I asked. No one answered. Again, no one answered fast enough. Cassian looked over his shoulder at the vampires gathered in the hall. Seal the house, he said. Verena's brows drew together. Against outsiders? Against everyone. A murmur moved through them. Cassian rose slowly, my blood staining his fingers. And find me the council member who ordered Dorian placed at her door. His voice dropped into something colder than anger. Before I start with all of them. They gave me clean bandages. Not answers. The vampire who changed the dressing on my arm kept his eyes on the floor the entire time. He moved like one wrong breath might get him killed, which, considering Cassian stood behind him with murder arranged neatly across his face, was probably accurate. Dorian's bite had stopped bleeding, but the marks were ugly. 2 punctures in the inside of my forearm, dark around the edges, tender enough that every pulse felt like a warning. Cassian watched the wounds like they had insulted him personally. Stop staring, I said. His gaze lifted to mine. No, of course. The healer finished wrapping my arm and backed away. She should rest. I should do a lot of things, I said, but apparently no one in this house values my schedule. The healer looked terrified by the fact that I was speaking. Cassian dismissed him with one flick of his fingers. The door shut. The locks caught. Again. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion pulling at my bones, anger doing its best to hold me upright. Somewhere in the mansion, vampires were sealed behind doors because my blood had turned one of their own into a nightmare with a name. Dorian had looked at me like salvation. Then Cassian had cut off his head. I pressed my good hand over my stomach. How many? Cassian stood near the fireplace. How many what? Women. In my family. My voice sounded rough, but it didn't break. I was proud of that. How many died because of this? His silence answered first. My chest tightened. You know something, I said. I know legends. That's a very pretty way of saying you know something, and don't want to tell me. His jaw flexed. Pretty is not an accusation usually directed at me. Don't be cute. You're terrible at it. A muscle moved near his mouth. Not a smile. Something dead trying to remember the shape. I stood too fast. Pain flashed down my arm, and Cassian moved before I could hide it. One step, no more. The restraint should not have felt important. It did anyway. I need records, I said. No. You didn't even ask what kind. I know what kind. That stopped me. Outside the windows, the last of the day burned low behind the black trees. The room had gone gold at the edges, all that expensive furniture looking less like luxury and more like evidence. You already looked, I said. I looked for anything that might explain what you are. What I am? I laughed once. I'm a woman who went to work and got bitten by a corpse with a superiority complex. You are the last known descendant of a bloodline vampires tried to erase. The room seemed to tilt. My anger stayed standing even when the rest of me wanted to sit down. Then I need to know who they erased. Cassian's eyes held mine. No more locked rooms, I said. No more ancient women whispering warnings. No more people deciding if I live based on stories they won't explain. You want me not to panic? Give me something to do. You think knowledge will make you safer? No, I said. I think ignorance has been getting women in my family killed for generations. That did it. Maybe it was the word killed. Maybe it was the way my fear moved through him, because his fingers curled once at his side. Then he opened the door. Come. The library at Devereux House was ridiculous. 3 stories of books rose into shadow, with iron ladders fixed to rails, and a ceiling painted with angels, who looked deeply uncomfortable being trapped there. A fire burned low in a hearth big enough to cremate a horse. On the central table sat my laptop, my old family Bible, 2 shoeboxes from my apartment closet, and a stack of leather ledgers that smelled like dust, mold, and secrets. I stopped walking. You went through my apartment? Yes. My closet? Yes. My personal things? I was thorough. I turned on him. Do you have any idea how violating that is? His expression did not change, but the air around him sharpened. Yes. The simple answer hit strangely. Not apology, not an excuse. Acknowledgement. I hated that I didn't know what to do with it. I crossed to the table and touched the Bible first. The cover was cracked, the gold lettering worn down to dull smudges. My grandmother had kept birth certificates tucked between psalms, and old funeral programs pressed into the pages like flowers. I opened it carefully. Names spilled out. Lenora Mae Williams. Ruth Ann Williams. Celia Williams. Mabel Williams. Sarah Williams. Women I knew from family stories, most of them reduced to 1 sentence and a warning. Don't ask about Aunt Celia. Your great-grandma Mabel had a hard life. Sarah got mixed up with bad people. Lenora died before her time. I had heard those phrases at cookouts, in kitchens, over paper plates and sweet tea. Always said quietly, always followed by somebody changing the subject. Now I read the death certificates. Lenora Mae Williams, 1978. Fall down basement stairs. No witnesses. Her fiancé was found 2 streets over, raving that she had called him from under the ground. Ruth Ann Williams, 1951. House fire. 3 men broke into the funeral service and fought over her coffin until police shot one of them. Celia Williams, 1926. Committed to St. Mercy Asylum. Cause of death listed as heart failure. The attending physician wrote in the margin, patient provoked violent fixation in male ward. I stared at the words until they blurred. Provoked, I whispered. Cassian said nothing. I flipped another page. Mabel Williams, 1899. Animal attack. Throat trauma. Body released without full examination by request of private patron. I knew death records. I knew the polite lies people wrote when the truth was inconvenient. Animal attack meant they did not know what did it. Heart failure meant they had stopped trying. Provoked meant a man did something monstrous, and everyone blamed the woman for being there when he lost control. My fingers shook as I opened the first ledger. Bellwether and Sons had handled half the black families in the city for over a century. I recognized the old handwriting from basement archives, the looping script of men who thought ink made them immortal. Sarah Williams, 1868. Burial delayed due to accusation of witchcraft. 3 gentlemen claimed illness after contact. 1 deceased by sunrise. I looked up. Gentlemen? Cassian's face was unreadable. Vampires, I said. Still nothing. My stomach turned. How many of these men were vampires? Enough. The words scraped through me. Enough. Enough to ruin funerals, enough to burn houses, enough to lock women away and call them temptresses because hunger sounded uglier when men admitted it belonged to them. I bent over the table, breathing hard. Cassian moved closer, then stopped himself. Do not, I said. I wasn't. You were thinking about it. Yes. That honesty was going to drive me insane. I pulled the oldest ledger toward me. It was not from Bellwether. The cover bore a stamped crest, a black thorn wrapped around a silver blade. Devereux. I looked at Cassian. He did not explain. The pages were brittle, the ink faded brown. Half the entries were in French, some in Latin. I understood enough from mortuary training and stubbornness to follow the pattern. Birth, death, burial, refusal, transfer. Then my family name appeared. Amara Williams, 1839, colored free woman, age unknown, body recovered near St. Mercy Cemetery, severe blood loss, burial denied by parish priest after claims of maleficium. Witchcraft. My throat closed. Below the entry, in a different hand, someone had written, "Remains moved beneath the chapel by order of Cassian Devereux." The library went silent. Not quiet, silent. Even the fire seemed to hold its breath. I looked at Cassian. For the first time since I'd met him, something crossed his face too quickly for him to kill it. Recognition. And fear. Not for himself. For what I had found. "Who was Cassian Devereux?" I asked. Cassian reached for the ledger. I dragged it back. His eyes darkened. "Nicole." "No." I flattened my hand on the page, right over his family name. "You don't get to snatch the truth away, because it finally pointed at your house. You are bleeding through your bandage. Then answer faster." His gaze dropped to my arm. Red had seeped through the white wrap in one thin line. The sight pulled at him. I felt it in the room, in the sudden tension of his shoulders, in the way the monster inside him pressed against its cage. But he did not come closer. "Good." "Cassian is dead," he said. "That is not an answer. It is the safest one." "For who?" His eyes returned to mine. There were centuries in them. Blood and stone and something buried so deep, even he seemed afraid to touch it. "For you," he said. I laughed, but it came out broken. Every person in this house keeps threatening me and calling it safety. This is older than the house. Then tell me. No. The word struck like a door slamming. I looked back down at Amara's name. My ancestor. A woman accused after death. A woman moved beneath a chapel by a Devereux. A woman whose blood had traveled through generations until it ended up in me, under bandages, under vampire teeth, under everyone else's fear. I closed the ledger slowly. "If you won't tell me," I said, "I'll ask someone who hates you enough to be honest." Cassian's expression hardened. That would be a mistake. Most of my life recently has been a mistake. From the doorway, Mother Verina's voice drifted in, soft as grave dirt. "The court has summoned her." Cassian turned. Verina stood between the open doors, hands folded, black eyes fixed on the ledger beneath my palm. "They know about the second bite," she said, "and now they know the Williams bloodline has been confirmed." The fire cracked behind me. I kept my hand on Amara's name. Cassian's voice dropped into something deadly and calm. "Then the court can wait." Verina looked at me, not him. "No, my prince," she said. "This time, they will not."
The court did not summon. It demanded. There were old laws even I did not break lightly. Not because I respected them, but because I knew what they were built to contain. Vampire courts were not halls of justice. They were rooms where monsters agreed not to slaughter each other for 1 hour and called the restraint civilization. Nicole stood beside the library table, with Amara Williams's name still beneath her hand. She looked at me, as if the entire Devereux line had become a blade pointed at her throat. Perhaps it had always been one. "I'm not going in there like a prisoner," she said. "You are a prisoner." Her eyes narrowed. "You really do have a gift for making bad situations worse. It saves time." I'm walking on my own. I looked at the bandage wrapped around her forearm. Dorian's bite had bled through again, a small red bloom spreading beneath the linen. Pain answered in my own arm. I hated the weakness of it. "Stay close," I said. "Because you care? Because if one of them reaches for you, I would prefer to kill him before his hand closes." Her mouth tightened. Fear moved through her, but anger came faster. It struck the bond like flint. My fangs ached. Good. Anger kept her standing. The descent to the court chamber took us beneath the house, past iron sconces and walls carved with names older than the nation above them. Nicole walked without touching me. She kept her injured arm against her body, and her chin lifted. Every line of her telling the dark that it had not impressed her. That, more than her blood, made them watch. The doors opened before us. The clan court waited in a chamber of black stone, circular and sunless, with 13 high-backed seats arranged around the old floor seal. At the center of that seal was the Devereux crest, a blade piercing a thorned crown. Mother Verena sat third from the left, silver hair coiled over one shoulder, black eyes fixed on Nicole. Beside her lounged Lord Alaric Voss, beautiful in the useless way cruel men often were. On the far side stood Lady Marin, thin as a drawn knife, her gloved hands folded over a cane capped in bone. The rest watched me. Then they watched Nicole's throat. A growl moved up my chest before I could stop it. Several eyes dropped. Nicole glanced at me. Subtle. Wasn't meant to be. Verena's voice carried without effort. Nicole Williams, descendant of the cursed bloodline, has been brought before the court. I brought myself, Nicole said. A murmur moved through the chamber. I almost closed my eyes. Almost. Lord Voss smiled. She speaks freely. She breathes freely as well, I said. Do not mistake either for invitation. His smile thinned. Lady Marin leaned forward. Dorian of the Eastern Watch is dead. He attacked her, I said. He tasted her, Marin corrected. Then murdered one guard, maimed another, and attempted to challenge the Black Fang himself. After one mouthful, Nicole's heartbeat quickened. Every vampire in the room heard it. I stepped half an inch closer to her. Lord Voss noticed. Of course he did. One mouthful, he repeated softly. Imagine what a vial could accomplish. The chamber stilled. Nicole looked at him. Excuse me? Voss did not bother pretending shame. A controlled draw, a measured dose. Given to an enemy clan before battle, it could unmake their strongest, turn princes into beasts, make sires slaughter their own broods for the privilege of crawling toward you. No, Nicole said. He looked amused. Humans say that word as though it has weight. I moved before the amusement finished leaving his face. Not far. Only one step. Enough for the court to remember how many executions had begun with less. Voss's gaze returned to me. No vial leaves her body, I said. You cannot guard every drop of blood she possesses. I can begin by spilling yours. The old chamber remembered silence. Then Lady Marin tapped her cane once against the stone. This is precisely why she must die. Nicole went very still. Marin's eyes did not soften. Not as punishment, as containment. We have outlived plagues, inquisitions, wars, and famine, because we understood when to burn rot from the root. The Williams line should have ended in 1839. Nicole's anger vanished so abruptly, the bond went cold. What did you say? She asked. Verena's gaze sharpened. Marin only smiled. You found the name then? Amara. Nicole did not look at me, but I felt the question in her like pressure behind my ribs. I had no answer I could give in that room. Voss stretched one hand lazily over the arm of his chair. Death is wasteful. We have before us a weapon the old stories promised and failed to preserve. Let the human remain alive, kept, fed, bled when needed. Nicole laughed once. Every eye returned to her. It was not a frightened sound. It was worse. It was disbelief edged with disgust. You're all standing here discussing how to use or kill me like I'm not in the room. You are in a court, Marin said. Presence is not power. Nicole stepped forward. I caught the motion in my bones before I saw it. Every instinct screamed to pull her back. I did not. I work with dead people, she said. I know what power looks like when it's gone. I know what bodies look like after someone else has made every choice for them. So let me be very clear. I am not your weapon. I am not your rot. And I am not volunteering to be some vampire science project because you're scared of what happens when men like you lose control. The silence after that was absolute. Then Voss smiled wider. There, he said. Can you not feel it? Even her defiance draws the room. He was right. That was the horror of it. Her anger moved through the chamber, waking appetites and resentments, sharpening envy in old mouths. My own fangs pressed hard against my gums until pain steadied me. Verena spoke at last. Prince Cassian, your judgment is compromised. Yes. Nicole turned her head. The court shifted at my admission. Verena's expression did not change. You feel her pain? Yes. Her fear? Yes. Her desire? Nicole's breath caught. The bond lashed. I looked at Verena and let the executioner answer for me. Careful. A warning, not a denial. Verena inclined her head. Then you are unfit to decide her fate. I am not deciding her fate, I said. I am deciding who dies trying to take it from her. Marin rose. You would threaten the court. I have threatened better rooms than this. Voss laughed under his breath. Possession speaks beautifully when dressed as protection. Nicole faced me fully then. There was no gratitude in her eyes, only fury. Is that what this is? She asked. You claiming me in front of them? I am invoking right of guard. That sounds like ownership. It is not. It sounds exactly like ownership. I turned toward her, letting the whole court hear every word. If I meant to own you, Nicole, you would already be on your knees. I am keeping them from tearing you apart. Her anger struck so hard and my vision darkened at the edges. Good. Let her hate me. Hatred was cleaner than hope. For a moment, I thought she might slap me in front of the entire court. I almost wanted her to. It would have been honest. Instead, she said, You really think being the least immediate threat makes you noble? No. Good, because it doesn't. I know. That seemed to unsettle her more than any defense could have. Verena's voice cut between us. By old law, the first vampire to draw cursed blood must either destroy the vessel, surrender the vessel to court judgment, or stand as guard until origin is proven. Marin hissed. That law has not been invoked in centuries. Still written, Verena said. Voss's eyes gleamed. Origin, then. Let us open the old wound properly. Nicole went still again. I knew before he spoke what name he would use. I would have killed him to keep it in his mouth, but killing him here would only confirm every accusation against me. Voss looked at Nicole. Ask your prince what Cassian Devereux buried beneath St. Mercy Chapel. Her heartbeat stumbled. Mine would have, if it still knew how. Nicole looked at me, and for once there was no sarcasm ready. No shield. Only the terrible focus of a woman who had found the door to her own grave and intended to open it. What is beneath the chapel? she asked. The court waited. I said nothing. Marin's cane struck the floor again. 3 nights. Prove origin. Prove containment, or the woman dies by court order. No, Nicole said. Marin glanced at her. No? Nicole's voice lowered. I'm done letting people put dates on my death. I felt something move in me then. Not softness. Recognition. Verena rose. The court is adjourned. The doors opened behind us, but no one moved first. They were waiting for weakness, for me to touch Nicole, for her to lean toward me, for proof that the curse had already made pets of us both. Nicole gave them nothing. She walked out before I did. In the corridor, the doors shut with the sound of a tomb sealing. Only then did she stop. Her shoulders were rigid. Her bandaged arm trembled once before she forced it still. I am not yours, she said. No. But you'll kill for me. Yes. That's not comforting. It was not meant to be. She turned to face me, brown eyes hard with fear she refused to bow under. Then take me to St. Mercy, she said. And this time, don't hide anything. Behind her, deep beneath Devereux House, the court began whispering again. Ahead of us, the dead waited with the truth.
The court gave me 3 nights to prove why I deserved to keep breathing. Cassian gave me 30 seconds to get my coat. I'm not a dog, I said. No, he answered, already walking. A dog would have better survival instincts. I hate when you try to be funny. I wasn't. Of course he wasn't. We left Devereux House through a side passage that smelled like stone, old smoke, and money that had outlived morals. No guards followed us. Either Cassian had ordered them away, or they were smart enough not to stand between him and whatever waited at St. Mercy. The car ride was silent for 10 whole minutes. I ruined it first. Was Lucian your father? Cassian's hands stayed steady on the wheel. No. Grandfather? No. Are you going to make me guess through the whole family tree? His eyes remained on the dark road. Cassian Devereux was an ancestor, a prince before my line carried the title. Cruel, indulged, powerful enough that no one told him no until it was too late. That sounds like a Devereux family tradition. His jaw tightened. Good. I wanted it to cut. You knew his name was in my records, I said. I knew the legend involved my family. That's not the same thing. No. I stared out the window at the trees whipping by, black branches clawing at the moonlit sky. My arm throbbed beneath the bandage where Dorian had bitten me. Every pulse felt like proof I was still alive out of spite. Did he kill Amara? I asked. Cassian did not answer fast enough. My stomach sank. Don't do that, I said. Don't go quiet and make me drag the truth out of you 1 bloody inch at a time. His voice came low. I do not know all of it. But you know enough. Yes. St. Mercy Cemetery rose from the dark at the edge of the old district, fenced in iron and crowded with crooked stones. The chapel sat at the back of the grounds, like a forgotten accusation, its steeple broken, its stained glass windows boarded from the inside. I had seen abandoned churches before. This one felt watched. Cassian parked beneath a dead oak and killed the engine. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he said, "Stay close." I laughed under my breath. That phrase is starting to feel like a threat. It is advice. From a man who threatened to put me on my knees in front of a room full of monsters? His head turned. The darkness inside the car made his expression sharper, all angles and restraint. If I had chosen softer words, they would have heard weakness. I heard you just fine. His fingers flexed once on the steering wheel. I know. That was worse than an excuse. An excuse I could hate cleanly. This almost sounded like regret. I got out before I could decide what to do with it. The cemetery air was cold enough to bite through my coat. Wet leaves clung to the walkway, and the graves leaned toward us as if the dead were trying to listen. Cassian moved ahead, silent over cracked stone. his black coat dragging behind him like a shadow rank. I followed because the only other option was standing alone among dead people whose relatives probably had fewer vampire problems than mine. At the chapel doors, Cassian stopped. A rusted chain hung across the handles. He looked at it. The chain fell in 2 pieces. "Subtle," I said. "Still not trying." Inside the chapel smelled like mildew, dust, and old prayers gone unanswered. The pews were warped. The altar had cracked down the middle. A statue of Mary stood in the corner with one hand missing and vines creeping around her feet. I stepped carefully over broken glass. This place was deconsecrated? After 1841. 1 year after Amara died. Yes. Convenient. Yes. He did not soften the truth. Maybe he didn't know how. Maybe that was the closest thing to mercy he had. Cassian approached the altar and pressed his thumb against the carved base. At first, nothing happened. Then stone groaned. The cracked altar shifted aside, revealing stairs beneath it. I looked at him. "You knew where the door was." Devereux secrets tend to have the same architecture. Under churches, under lies. That one almost sounded human. Almost. He started down first as I caught his sleeve. He looked at my hand on him, then at me. "My dead," I said. "I go first." "No. Cassian. The floor may be trapped. The air may be warded. There may be things below that will kill you before you finish making your point." "I'm still making it." His eyes held mine. The bond moved between us, ugly and intimate. My fear. His answer to it. The thing in him that wanted to put me behind him, beneath him, anywhere but exposed. Finally, he stepped aside. "Slowly," he said. "I swear one day you're going to choke on a command. I have survived worse. Not me." I descended. The stairs were narrow, wet, and steep enough to make every step a negotiation. The air changed halfway down. It grew colder, heavier, threaded with something metallic that made my injured arm ache. Blood remembered blood. The crypt beneath St. Mercy was larger than the chapel above it. Burial niches lined the walls. Some were sealed with stone. Others stood open and empty. Names had been scratched away from several markers, but one alcove at the far end remained untouched. A simple stone slab. No flowers, no cross. Just a name carved deep. Amara Williams, 1839. My breath stopped. I had worked with the dead for years. I had washed bodies, closed eyes, combed hair, cleaned blood from skin. Death did not usually frighten me. It was honest in a way people rarely were. But this was different. This was family. I moved toward the slab with my hand pressed against my chest, as if my heart might try to leave without permission. "She was buried here alone," I said. Cassian stood several feet behind me. "Yes." "No proper service?" "No." "No family?" Most of them were already dead. The crypt seemed to tilt. We turned slowly. "What does that mean?" He looked at the slab, not me. "Lucian slaughtered her household." The words hit without drama. That made them worse. I swallowed once. "Why?" "Because she refused him." My injured arm throbbed harder. A drop of blood slipped beneath the bandage and struck the stone floor. The crypt answered. The air snapped tight. Cassian said my name, but the sound stretched thin, pulled away from me. Then I was not standing beneath St. Mercy anymore. I was on the chapel floor above, but not as it was now. Candles burned. Smoke thickened the air. Someone was screaming outside. A woman crawled toward the altar, leaving blood behind her in dark streaks. Amara, I knew her without being told. Her skin was brown like earth after rain, her hair wrapped in torn cloth, her dress soaked at the collar. Her eyes were not defeated. They were furious. A man stood over her. Cassian Devereux. Beautiful in the way knives were beautiful. His mouth was red with her blood. From somewhere beneath the floorboards came a child's muffled sob. Amara heard it. So did Lucian. He smiled. Something in her broke open. Not fear. Not weakness. Power. Amara pressed her bleeding hand to the chapel floor and spoke through ruined breaths. Let them inherit what they steal. The candles bent toward her. Let every creature who opens my blood lose the thing he worships most. Let hunger turn inward. Let control rot beneath the bite. Let him be bound to the pain he causes, the fear he feeds, the wanting he mistakes for love. Lucian stepped back. For the first time, his smile died. Amara lifted her eyes to him. Not love, she whispered. Ruin. The vision shattered. I came back gasping, doubled over beside the slab, Cassian's hands hovering near me without touching. Not grabbing. Not taking. Waiting. The restraint hurt to see. What did you see? He asked. I wiped at my face and realized I was crying. I hated that too. Her, I said. Amara. Lucian. A child under the floor. Cassian went very still. Her daughter survived. My line. Yes. I looked at Amara's name until the letters blurred. They called her a witch. They called her that because it was easier than admitting what he was. She cursed us. She cursed vampires, Cassian said. She cursed everyone after her to be hunted by them. His silence admitted the rest. I laughed once, broken and bitter. Men destroy a woman's life, and somehow she's still the one who has to carry the blame for what comes after. Cassian lowered his gaze. On the side of the slab, half hidden by dirt, more words had been carved into the stone. I brushed them clean with shaking fingers. What is taken by fang is bound by blood. What is given by will may yet be freed. Cassian read it over my shoulder. The bond between us went cold. I knew then that he understood more than he wanted to. So did I. Before either of us could speak, wood groaned above us. The chapel doors opened. Cassian turned toward the stairs, fangs sliding down, his whole body becoming violence held in human shape. I rose beside Amara's grave. From above, a stranger's voice drifted down into the dark. Prince Cassian, bring us the woman.
Prince Cassian, bring us the woman. The voice came from the chapel above, smooth with borrowed authority. I knew every sanctioned voice of the court. This one was not among them. Nicole stood beside Amara Williams's grave, one hand pressed against the carved stone, the other held close to her injured arm. Her blood had scented the crypt already. Not much, a thread, a warning. To vampires, a thread was enough. Stay behind me, I said. Her eyes cut to mine. Don't start. Nicole! No. Her voice shook once, then steadied. I'm not hiding behind dead women anymore. The curse tightened between us. Fear, anger, pain. All of it hers. All of it mine. I moved toward the stairs anyway. At the top, 3 vampires waited inside the ruined chapel. 2 more stood near the broken pews, dressed in court black without the seal to justify it. Lord Voss's kind. Polished boots, expensive coats, hungry eyes. The one at the altar smiled. The court requires the human. The court dismissed us, I said. Circumstances changed. They often do when cowards move without witnesses. His smile thinned. Lord Voss believes the Williams bloodline should be secured before Lady Marin has it destroyed. Then Lord Voss should have come himself. He values strategy. He values other men dying first. Nicole came up the last stair behind me. Every vampire in the chapel looked at her. Everyone. Their attention struck the bond like teeth. My fangs descended. The closest one inhaled. That was all. I crossed the chapel before he finished drawing breath. My hand closed around his throat, and I drove him backward through the nearest pew. Wood shattered beneath him. Its claws came up for my face. I broke his wrist, then his elbow, then his neck. Clean breaks. Unclean satisfaction. The others moved. I had executed vampires for 2 centuries. Execution was discipline. A blade, a verdict, an ending. This was not that. This was the thing beneath the title, the reason they whispered Black Fang like a prayer they hated needing. One lunged toward Nicole. I caught him by the back of the skull and slammed him into the chapel floor hard enough to crack stone. He was still moving when I struck again. And again. Nicole's fear spiked. My vision narrowed. Someone shouted. A silver chain snapped around my shoulder, burning through coat and flesh. I tore it free with skin attached and wrapped it around the throat of the vampire holding the other end. He tried to speak Voss's name. I pulled. His voice ended before the name could save him. "Cassian!" Nicole called. Not fear, command. It reached me too late. The last 2 came together. One with a blade. One with a hooked instrument designed for restraint, not battle. They had planned to take her alive. Bleed her, bottle her, pass her from hand to hand as if a woman's veins were territory. Something old and vile opened in me. I hit the first so hard his ribs collapsed under my fist. The blade dropped. I took it before it touched the floor and buried it under his jaw. The second retreated. Good. He should have run. He backed toward the chapel doors with both hands raised. Wait, Prince. I can tell you. Nicole's heartbeat thundered. Mine did not exist, but something inside me answered anyway. I seized him by the front of his coat and lifted him off the ground. "Who sent you?" I asked. His eyes darted past me to Nicole. Wrong choice. I threw him against the wall beside the broken statue. Plaster split. Vines shook dust over his hair and shoulders. He slid down, one hand raised in surrender. "Voss," he gasped. "It was Voss," he said. I was already on him. Not because I needed the answer. Because Nicole's blood had dried on her bandage. Because her fear was still in my skull. Because the chapel stank of Amara's death and Lucian's sins. Because every vampire in that room had looked at Nicole like hunger had made law of her body. Because I wanted him gone. I tore out his throat. The chapel went quiet except for the wet sound of him failing to heal. Then even that stopped. I stood over the bodies with blood on my hands, my coat, my mouth. Not my blood. Not hers. I waited for the old calm to return. It did not. Nicole stood near the stairs, framed by the dark opening to the crypt below. Her face held no gratitude, no relief, only horror. Not the simple horror of a woman seeing death. She worked with the dead. She knew bodies. She knew what violence left behind after the screaming stopped. This was different. "You killed him," she said. "Yes." He was talking. He had said enough. "No." She stepped farther into the chapel. Broken glass crunched beneath her shoe. He was surrendering. "He came to take you. And you decided that meant you could do anything." I turned fully toward her. The bond gave me her pulse, her anger, the tremor she refused to let reach her voice. It gave me the raw place beneath all of it, too. She was not afraid I would kill her. She was afraid I would kill everyone else and make her the reason. The realization cut more cleanly than the silver chain had. "They would have bled you," I said. "Then stop them." I did. "No, Cassian, you punished them. There's a difference." I looked down at the bodies. Broken limbs, torn throats, blood in the aisle where dead prayers had once been spoken. The curse hummed beneath my skin. "What would you have had me do?" I asked. "Control yourself." The words should have been laughable. From anyone else, they would have been. From her, they were a blade slipped between ribs. "I am controlling myself," I said. Her eyes flashed. "This is you controlled?" I did not answer. That was answer enough. She pressed her good hand against her chest, like she was holding herself together by force. "Dorian bit me, and you executed him. I understood that. I hated it, but I understood it. He was gone. The curse had eaten whatever was left of him. Dorian would have killed for you. So will you." Silence. The chapel seemed to lean in. Nicole took one step closer. "That's what scares me. Not that you're violent. I already knew that. Not that you're dangerous. I'd have to be stupid not to know that." Her voice lowered. "I'm scared that every time I bleed, every time I flinch, every time I'm afraid, you'll decide my fear gives you permission." Permission. A word from courts, from hunters, from men like Lucien, who had taken what he wanted and called desire entitlement. I looked away first. She saw it. Of course she did. "The curse amplifies whatever is already there," she said. "Dorian had hunger. Voss has ambition. Those men had greed." "And me?" I asked. She did not soften it. "Control." My jaw tightened. "When you have it, you're cold," she continued. "When you lose it, you turn the whole world into something you can break." The truth of it stood between us, uglier than the bodies. "I protected you," I said. "You used me as the excuse." My hands curled. She looked at them, then back at my face. "I refuse to be your addiction, your cure, or your excuse." The bond shuddered. For one impossible moment, I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she did not understand what had walked into that chapel. That mercy was a luxury for creatures who had never watched centuries of monsters survive because someone let one crawl away. But she understood too much. That was the problem. "I feel you," I said, the admission rougher than intended. "Every fear, every hurt, every time your heart changes rhythm, it is inside my skull. You think restraint is simple when your pain becomes command? I think restraint only matters when it isn't simple." There was nothing soft in her then, nothing breakable. Blood on her bandage, tears drying on her face from whatever Amara had shown her below. Shoulders squared beneath a coat too thin for the cemetery cold. She looked like the last living woman in a line that had survived men, monsters, churches, fires, and lies, and she was telling me no, not pleading, not begging, refusing. I had been worshipped out of fear, obeyed out of necessity, hated with excellent reason. I had not been refused like this, not by someone whose heartbeat owned me. "Say something," she said. "If I say what I want to say, you will hate me more." "Try me." I stepped closer. She did not move back. "I do not know how to want you safely," I said. "Only completely." Her breath caught. The bond burned. I hated that she heard the truth in it. I hated it more that I could not make it smaller. "That," she whispered, "is not love." "No." I forced the word out. "It cost. It is not." For the first time since the mortuary, since her blood had crossed my tongue and ruined the architecture of my existence, the obsession had a shape I could see. A cage. Not around her. Around me. Nicole looked toward Amara's crypt. She cursed vampires to lose control because control was what they worshipped. Yes. Then don't worship it. A sound scraped from my chest. Almost a laugh. Almost pain. "You ask for miracles now?" "No." She looked back at me. "I'm asking for choices." Before I could answer, a bell tolled in the distance. Once. Twice. Not from the ruined chapel. From Devereux House. The morning bell. Nicole heard it too. "What is that?" "Awake," I said. "For Dorian?" Likely? Her expression hardened. Now? Court tradition required a body to be honored before judgment, even if the body had tried to murder half the house. Tradition also made excellent cover for knives. Voss had moved too soon tonight. He would not be done. A raven struck the broken chapel window and dissolved into black smoke. A message formed in the air, written in red court script. All blood present at the wake. Attendance required. Nicole read it once. Then she looked at me. No, I said. Yes, she answered. They will try again. I know. You will not be safe. I haven't been safe since you bit me. The words landed where they were meant to. She walked past the bodies toward the chapel doors, careful not to step in the blood. At the threshold, she stopped without turning around. If we go, she said, you don't get to make me your reason. The morning bell tolled again. This time, it sounded like a warning.
The morning bell did not stop until we reached Devereux House. Every toll followed us through the gates, across the black drive, up the steps where vampires stood too still beneath the moon. None of them looked surprised to see blood on Cassian's coat. That was the first thing that scared me. Not the staring, not the silence, the expectation. Cassian noticed too. His hand moved near my back without touching me, close enough that I felt the warning in it. Stay beside me, he said. I know. His eyes cut to mine. I hated that he could hear the difference. This time I wasn't arguing. Inside, Devereux House had been dressed for grief. Black silk covered the walls. Tall candles burned with blue-white flame. The air smelled like wax, old wood, and blood sealed badly beneath perfume. Vampires gathered along the corridor in formal black, their faces solemn in a way that felt rehearsed. At the end of the hall, the doors to the wake chamber stood open. Dorian lay inside. Or what was left of him. His body rested on a stone bier beneath a veil of sheer black cloth. Someone had arranged his hands over his chest, as if death had been gentle with him, as if Cassian had not opened his throat in front of me because my blood had ruined him. My stomach twisted. Cassian stopped at the threshold. Every vampire in the room turned. Mother Verena stood near the head of the bier, silver hair falling over one shoulder. Lady Marin waited beside her, both hands folded over that bone-capped cane. Lord Voss lounged near the far wall, beautiful and bored, like grief was something servants handled for him. His gaze found my bandaged arm, then my throat. Cassian growled. This time, no one looked away. Verena's voice filled the chamber. All blood is present. All loyal blood, Cassian corrected. A murmur moved through the room. Lady Marin tapped her cane once. Mind your tongue before the dead. The dead are rarely offended by accuracy. I almost laughed. It would have been the wrong sound in the wrong room, but fear made strange things rise in me. Verena lifted one hand. Dorian of the Eastern Watch died under execution by Prince Cassian Devereux, called Black Fang, after succumbing to the Williams curse. No, I said. The word left me before I thought better of it. Faces turned. I forced myself to step forward. Cassian's attention snapped to me, sharp as a hook. He died because he bit me without consent, I said. Do not make that sound like something I did to him. Voss smiled faintly. Such moral clarity from a woman whose blood turns men into beasts. Maybe they were already beasts. His smile widened. Cassian's hand closed around nothing at his side. Lady Marin looked at me as if I were a stain the house had failed to scrub out. The court has reconsidered your containment. Funny. I didn't hear anyone ask me. No one needed to. Something cold shifted through the room. Cassian felt it before I did. He moved in front of me. Too late. Silver chains dropped from the ceiling like falling snakes. They wrapped around his arms, his chest, his throat. The metal burned through his coat. Smoke rose where it touched him. He did not scream. That somehow made it worse. He only went still. Very still. The whole room held its breath. Then he smiled. Not kindly. Not sanely. "You should have used more," he said. 3 vampires seized the chains and pulled. Another drove a silver spike through the links into the stone floor. Cassian's knees bent, but he did not fall. I ran toward him. Hands caught me from behind. I threw an elbow back and hit something solid. A vampire hissed. Another gripped my injured arm. Pain exploded white-hot through my nerves. Cassian's head snapped up. The chains screamed. "Do not touch her," he said. Every candle in the room trembled. Voss pushed away from the wall. "You see, compromised beyond reason." "He's not the one who just chained a man at a funeral," I snapped. Voss came toward me with lazy grace. "A wake is an old place for truth, Miss Williams. The dead strip away pretense. The dead usually have better manners." His eyes flashed red. Cassian pulled once against the chains. Stone cracked beneath his feet. Verena spoke softly. "Cassian." He looked at her. For the first time since I'd met him, something like betrayal moved across his face. Not surprise. He was too old for that. Recognition. "You agreed to this," he said. Verena's black eyes did not waver. "I agreed to preserve the clan. You agreed to hand her to Voss." "To study controlled exposure," Marin said. "If her blood can be measured, it can be used or neutralized." My throat went dry. Voss stopped in front of me. "Weaponized is the word she is avoiding." I jerked against the hands holding me. "No." He leaned close enough that I could smell wine and old blood on him. "Humans always say that at the beginning." Cassian moved. Not much. Enough. One chain snapped. Panic flashed across several immortal faces. Voss's patience vanished. He caught my chin in one hand, his fingers cruel and cold. Cassian's voice dropped into something that did not belong in a human-shaped body. "Alaric?" Voss looked at him and smiled. Then he bit me. Pain tore through my neck. I heard myself cry out, but the sound felt far away, swallowed by the room and the sudden wet heat of my own blood. Voss drank once, only once. Then he tore himself back like he'd been struck. His pupils blew wide. Red flooded his eyes until no humanity remained in them. The elegant mask cracked. Beneath it was hunger, yes, but not like Dorian's. Dorian had wanted to devour. Voss wanted to own. The change came over him in a shudder. He turned toward the court, blood on his mouth. My blood, and smiled like he had found a throne hidden inside my veins. "Oh," he whispered. "There you are." The hands holding me loosened. Voss noticed. He killed the nearest vampire before anyone understood he had moved. One moment the guard held my arm. The next, his head struck the floor. Screams ripped through the wake chamber. Voss dragged me against him, one arm locked across my chest. "No one touches her." Lady Marin took one step back. "Lord Voss," he snarled at her. Actually snarled. "You would destroy this?" he demanded. "You dried-up coward. You would burn a crown because you feared wearing it." Marin's face hardened. "The curse has him." "No," I whispered. Because I understood then. Not all at once. Not gently. Dorian had been hunger with fangs. Cassian's control was sharpened into violence, and Voss was ambition given a heartbeat. My blood did not create obsession. It crowned what was already there. Voss pressed his bloody mouth near my ear. "They wanted to waste you. Fools. With you, I could make kings crawl." "I'm not yours," I said. His arm tightened until breathing hurt. "You will learn." Across the room, Cassian went silent. That was worse than his rage. The remaining chains strained around him. Silver burned into his skin. Blood ran black-red beneath his collar. His eyes were fixed on Voss' arm across me, on the blood at my neck, on the way I had to fight for air. Voss saw him watching. He laughed. "Look at him," he said to the room, the black fang, leashed by a heartbeat. Cassian lowered his head. For one terrible second, I thought the silver had finally beaten him. Then he pulled. The stone floor split. The first vampire holding the chains flew forward and hit the bier. Dorian's covered body slid sideways. Candles toppled. Blue flame crawled across black silk. Another chain snapped. Then another. Verena moved back. Marin lifted her cane. Voss dragged me toward the side doors, using me like a shield. "Kill him," he ordered. No one moved fast enough. Cassian rose from the broken silver. He did not look like a prince. He did not look like a man. He looked like every warning vampires had ever whispered about him had been too generous. "Nicole," he said. My name in his mouth was not soft. It was a sentence. Voss's grip tightened. His blood-wet smile trembled with madness and triumph. "Come then, Black Fang," he whispered. "Let us see which of us she ruins first." Cassian stepped over the broken chains, and the wake chamber became a battlefield. The battle had a sound I knew only from the aftermath. Bodies hitting stone, bone breaking wrong, wet gasps cut short. I had cleaned rooms after violence. I had stitched mouths closed, washed blood from fingernails, tucked ruined men into suits their mothers picked out. I knew what war looked like when it was finished. I had never stood in the middle of it while it was being made. Cassian crossed the wake chamber like the silver chains had only reminded him what pain was for. The first vampire who moved to stop him lost an arm. The second hit the wall hard enough to leave cracks branching through old plaster. Voss held me against him, one arm locked beneath my ribs, his mouth still wet with my blood. "Watch him," he whispered against my ear. "This is what you command." "I command nothing. You command everything." Across the room, Cassian tore through another guard. Not cleanly, not with that cold executioner's discipline I had seen before. This was worse. This was hunger wearing a control's face. The court scattered around Dorian's bier. Black silk burned. Blue flame climbed the funeral drapery, turning grief into smoke. Mother Verena stood untouched near the head of the chamber, her black eyes fixed on Cassian like she was watching a prophecy fail in real time. Lady Marin pointed her cane at me. "End the woman." Cassian heard her. Of course he heard her. His head turned slowly. The vampire beneath his hand stopped struggling because there was nothing left in him that could. My heart slammed once, hard. Cassian's gaze snapped to me. That was when I understood. My fear did not just reach him. It fed the worst thing in him. I could not feel Cassian's thoughts. I could not crawl inside his skull the way he was trapped with my heartbeat, but I knew what my terror did to him. I had seen it in the chapel. I had seen it with Dorian. Every flinch I gave became permission in his hands. So I stopped giving it. Not because I wasn't afraid. I was terrified. I was bleeding from the neck in a room full of monsters, held by one who wanted to turn me into a crown. But fear was not the only thing in me. I breathed in, held it, let it out slow. The way I did in the prep room when grieving families fell apart and somebody had to keep steady hands. Again. Cassian froze with his fangs bared, blood dripping from one hand. "Nicole," he said. Not soft. Warning. Pleading. Command. All three fighting each other. "Stop," I said. The room went so quiet I heard the fire-eating silk. Voss laughed, breathless and delighted. "Look at that. Even the Black Fang kneels when she speaks." "He isn't kneeling," I said. "He's choosing." Voss's arm tightened. There it was. The thing under his beauty. He could not stand the idea that anyone else had a choice. "You think choice matters?" he asked. Choice is a story humans tell themselves before stronger things decide for them. Then why are you shaking? He went still. I had not noticed until I said it. His grip was strong enough to bruise, but there was a tremor in his fingers. My blood had not made him love me. It had taken the ambition already rotting inside him and given it teeth. He did not want me. He wanted what owning me would make him. A crown needs witnesses, I whispered, not corpses. His breath changed. Good. I kept talking. You kill everyone in this room, and what do you have? A dead court, a burned house, Cassian ripping you apart before sunrise. His mouth brushed my wound. I would have you. No, I said. You'd have a body. You want power. Power needs people left alive to fear it. Voss listened. Because ambition always listens when it hears its own name. He dragged me backward, past the broken chains on the floor. One loop of silver lay near my shoe, slick with Cassian's blood. I let my knees buckle. Voss cursed and shifted his grip. That was all I needed. I grabbed the chain and shoved it against his wrist. Silver did not burn me. It burned him. Voss screamed and released me. I hit the floor hard, rolled away, and came up with the chain wrapped around my fist. Cassian was already there. Too fast. Too furious. His hand closed around Voss's throat and drove him down onto the stone. The impact cracked the floor beneath them. Voss struck back, claws tearing through Cassian's shoulder. But Cassian did not seem to feel it. He lifted his other hand. I knew that posture. I had seen it before Dorian died. No, I said. Cassian did not look at me. Cassian. His hand hovered over Voss's chest. If you kill him for me, you prove them right. His jaw flexed. Voss smiled through blood. Listen to her. Such a good monster. Cassian's hand plunged down, not into Voss's heart, into the stone beside his head. The floor split. Voss flinched, so did half the court. I didn't. Cassian looked at me then, and there was nothing human in his face except the effort it took not to finish what he'd started. I stepped closer, chain still in my hand. I told you I would not be your excuse. His voice came rough. He bit you. And I am still speaking. Behind him, Voss twisted slick and fast. Two of his loyal vampires lunged forward, hauling him back before Cassian could reach again. Voss's eyes burned red, but I saw the calculation return beneath the madness. Ambition knew when to retreat. This is not finished, he said, staring at me. No, I answered. It isn't. He vanished through the side doors with his men, leaving blood and smoke behind him. No one followed. Cowards loved tradition until tradition required courage. Lady Marin struck her cane against the floor. This proves containment has failed. The woman dies now. Cassian turned. I stepped in front of him. Every vampire in that chamber looked at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had. Or maybe I had finally found it. If you mean to murder me, I said, use my name. Marin's mouth tightened. I waited. My name is Nicole Williams. Say it. Mother Verina's eyes narrowed. Nicole Williams. Good. My throat hurt. Blood slid warm beneath my collar. Remember it when you write the lie. Marin hissed. You dare. Yes, I snapped. I dare. You chained Cassian at a funeral. You handed me to Voss like a bottle passed across a table. He bit me, and now you want to clean up your failure by putting me in the ground. Silence answered me. I pointed toward Dorian's covered body, half hidden beneath scorched silk. He bit me because he wanted to know what the legend tasted like. It ruined him. Voss bit me because he wanted a weapon. It crowned his ambition and made him stupid with it. My gaze moved to Cassian. His blood was on the floor. His shoulders rose and fell, though he did not need breath. And Cassian bit me because he thought my body was something he could take to survive. His expression closed. I did not spare him. My blood does not create love. It does not create loyalty. It takes what is already inside a vampire and strips away the lie around it. Verena was very still. "You knew there was more," I said to her. Her silence gave her away. I reached into my coat and pulled out the folded rubbing I had taken from Amara's grave. The words pressed dark from stone. "What is taken by fang is bound by blood," I read. "What is given by will may yet be freed." The chamber changed. Not loudly. Worse. Vampires who had lived too long recognized truth when it threatened them. Marin looked at Verena. "You knew of this inscription?" "I suspected," Verena said. "You hid it." "I preserved what I could." I laughed once. It hurt my neck. That is what monsters always call it when they bury women. Verena's gaze returned to me. "Blood magic born in death can only be answered where it was made." "The chapel," Cassian said. His voice was flat now. Too flat. He understood before I did. Verena nodded. "The first-bound vampire must take the curse willingly into himself and release the claim. The blood must be given, not stolen." "No," Cassian said. I turned to him. "You don't get to decide that. It could kill you. So could standing here. It could destroy me. You're already being destroyed." That struck him. Good. Truth should leave bruises. I faced the court again. No one owns my blood. Not Voss, not Cassian. Not this clan. Not a dead curse made from a dead woman's pain. My hand tightened around the silver chain. If this ends, it ends because I choose it. Marin lifted her chin. "And if we refuse your terms?" I looked around the ruined wake chamber, at the bodies, at the broken chains, at Cassian standing behind me like violence waiting for permission I would not give. "Then execute me," I said. "With Voss loose, Cassian unchained, and every vampire here you're knowing you created the thing you were afraid of." No one moved. Outside the chamber, somewhere deep in Devereux House, the morning bell began again. One toll, then another. I looked at Cassian. "Take me back to St. Mercy," I said. "Tonight." For once, he did not reach for me. He only stepped aside and let me walk first.
I did not touch Nicole when we left Devereux House. Not because I did not want to, because I did. Her blood was still open at her throat. Voss's mark sat too near mine, an insult carved into living skin. Every instinct I possessed demanded I put my hand over it, cover it, erase it, kill him for placing it there. Nicole walked ahead of me through the ruined wake chamber, with the silver chain still wrapped around her fist, so I followed, for once, correctly. The court came behind us. Mother Verena, Lady Marin, 6 guards who no longer trusted me, and were wise enough not to stand close. The morning bell tolled until the door shut, and even then I heard it through stone, through distance, through the thunder of Nicole's heartbeat inside my skull. Still there. Still mine to hear, not mine. The correction was a blade I kept turning. At St. Mercy, the chapel waited beneath a moon veiled in cloud. Its broken windows stared down at us. The dead I had made earlier were gone, but blood remained between the pews, black in the cracks of the stone. Nicole stopped at the threshold. I stopped behind her. "You can still refuse," I said. She looked over her shoulder. Her brown eyes were tired, but not weak. Never weak. "Can you?" The question deserved honesty. "I do not know." Her fingers tightened around the silver. "Then learn fast." She descended into the crypt. The air below remembered death. Damp earth. Old bones. Amara Williams's grave stood where we had left it. The carved inscription, waiting like it had been patient for nearly 2 centuries. What is taken by fang is bound by blood. What is given by will may yet be freed. Verena moved to the foot of the grave. Blood magic obeys origin. This is where the curse was spoken. This is where it must be answered. Marin's cane struck stone. If he fails, kill them both. I turned my head toward her. Nicole spoke before I did. You don't give orders over my body anymore. Marin's mouth twisted. Child, you stand in a crypt surrounded by creatures who could drain you before you finished a prayer. And yet all of you are afraid of me. Silence settled. Good. She had learned the court's true language. Verina's black gaze remained on me. The first bound vampire must take the curse into himself, not the blood alone, the root of it. Then he must release the claim. There is no claim, I said. Nicole looked at me. The lie died before it left the crypt. Verina said, blood does not care what pride names it. A sound came from the stairwell above. Slow applause. Voss stepped out of the darkness, with my blood still dried beneath his nails and Nicole's on his mouth. His beauty had begun to rot around the edges, not in flesh, in composure. His smile twitched. His eyes burned red, too bright, too hungry. 2 vampires flanked him, both trembling with the kind of loyalty fear buys cheaply. There you are, Voss said to Nicole. I knew you would come back to the grave. Women like you are sentimental about cages. I moved. Nicole lifted one hand. I stopped. The effort cost more than the silver had. Voss noticed. His smile widened. Marvelous. Nicole faced him fully. You wanted a crown? I found one. No. She touched the folded grave rubbing tucked into her coat. You found a curse and called it ambition. Voss's expression cracked. You are mine by blood. No one is yours. The crypt shuddered. Not from force, from recognition. Amara's grave drank the words. Voss lunged. I caught his throat before he reached Nicole and slammed him into the wall. Stone broke behind him. His claws tore into my side. I felt it. I ignored it. His followers rushed forward, but Verina moved faster than either of them. One lost his head. The other lost his nerve. Voss laughed under my hand. Kill me, Black Fang. Prove what she is. Nicole's voice cut through the dark. Cassian. My fingers tightened once. Voss's bones strained beneath them. Then I let him fall. He hit the floor, choking and smiling, like surrender was another throne. I stepped back. Every vampire in that crypt understood what had happened. So did I. Nicole came to stand before Amara's grave. The wound at her neck had clotted badly. Blood marked her collar. Sweat shone on her brown skin. She looked mortal and furious and alive. Alive. The heartbeat in my skull stumbled. Mine, the curse whispered. No. Mine to protect. No. Mine to keep. No. Nicole unwrapped the silver chain from her hand and offered it to me. I stared at it. If you lose control, she said, I need to know you gave me a way to stop you. I took the chain. It burned through my palm. I did not drop it. Then I knelt. Gasps moved through the court behind us. Let them choke on it. From my knees, Nicole's throat was above me. Her choice was above me. For once, my hunger had to look up. You owe me nothing, I said. I know. If you say no, I will take you from here and kill anyone who follows. That still sounds like you making my choices. It is a difficult habit. Despite everything, her mouth almost curved. Almost. Then she grew still. I consent to this bite, she said clearly. Each word spoken into the crypt. To me. To the court. To the dead woman beneath the stone. Only to break what was made here. Only because I choose it. Nothing else. The curse recoiled. It knew the difference. So did I. I rose slowly. Tell me where. Her pulse jumped. I heard it. Last mercy, last punishment. She touched the place near my first mark, not Voss's. Here. My fangs descended. I wanted to apologize. Apologies were too small, so I waited. Nicole looked into my eyes and nodded. I bit her. Not as I had in the mortuary. Not stolen, not desperate. Not with her body held still by violence and shock. This time, I entered because she allowed it. Her blood touched my tongue. The world broke open. Amara screamed in my mouth. I saw the chapel whole, then burning. Saw Cassian Devereux with blood on his hands and satisfaction in his eyes. Saw Amara on the floor beneath the altar, one hand over her torn throat, the other pressed against the boards hiding her daughter below. Let hunger turn inward. The curse poured through me. Control wrought beneath bite. It filled my veins with every stolen mouthful, every woman blamed for what vampires had taken, every grave marked wrong, every name buried under witch, whore, temptation, madness, bound to pain they cause. I could have kept it. That was the horror. For one moment, the curse offered me the thing I had wanted since Nicole's blood first ruined me. Her heartbeat forever. Her fear before she spoke. Her pain before anyone else saw. Her desire if it ever came. Her. Mine in the dark architecture of blood. All I had to do was refuse to let go. Nicole's hand found my shoulder. Not pushing. There. Choosing. I pulled away from her throat, with the curse burning behind my teeth. Then I opened my hand around the silver chain and let it bite down to bone. "Nicole Williams is not mine!" I rasped. The crypt shook. Nicole's eyes sharpened. "Nicole!" The correction struck harder than the curse. I bowed my head. "Nicole Williams is not mine." The grave cracked. Her fear is not my command. Her pain is not my permission. Her blood is not my law. Voss screamed. Black veins spread beneath his skin, racing up his throat, across his face. He clawed at himself, as if he could tear ambition out before it consumed him. "No," he snarled. "She is mine. I took—" "What is taken," Nicole said, voice shaking but clear, "is bound." Voss reached for her. The curse turned inward. He folded around his own hunger, body twisting, mouth open in a sound too old for language. Then fireless ash burst from him and scattered across Amara's grave. No blade, no execution, only what he had carried, finally eating him whole. The mark at Nicole's throat closed. Not healed perfectly, not erased, closed. The crack down Amara's grave filled with red light, then went dark. The pressure in my skull vanished. I staggered. For the first time since the mortuary, there was no heartbeat. No fear, no anger, no pain, just silence. I turned toward Nicole too quickly, terror striking before thought. She stood in front of me, breathing, alive, one hand pressed to her neck, eyes fixed on mine. I could see her. I could not feel her. The absence was enormous. Verena whispered behind us. "The Williams bloodline is free." Marin said nothing. There was nothing left for her to own. Nicole lowered her hand from her throat. "Cassian?" I had heard my name from queens, victims, enemies, lovers, condemned men. Never like that. Never without the bond telling me what it meant. "I cannot hear you," I said. Her expression changed, but I did not know into what. Not anymore. She stepped back. Only one step. Enough to remind me that distance was hers to choose. Above us, dawn had not yet come. But for the first time in centuries, something inside me stood in the dark, without a command. And I had no idea what I would do with the silence.
The first night Cassian could not hear my heartbeat, I went back to work. Bellwether and Sons smelled exactly the same as it always had. Bleach, cold metal, flowers left too long in water. The dead did not care that vampires had held court beneath old stone. They did not care that my bloodline had been cursed for almost 200 years, or that the curse had broken open inside a crypt, while a vampire lord turned to ash at my feet. The dead were patient. I understood patient things. I cleaned the prep room until my arms ached. I restocked gloves. I signed for a delivery of embalming fluid, with my neck wrapped in a scarf, even though the wound had closed into a thin, tender scar. No one asked questions. People rarely wanted the truth in a funeral home. They wanted composure, soft music, good lighting, a body that looked less like an ending. I gave them that. Then I went home and sat in my apartment with every light on, waiting for a man who had no reason to come. 3 nights passed, no call. No black car outside my building. No shadow moving across my window. The vampire court sent a letter in an envelope thick as skin. Mother Verena's handwriting was neat and cruel. The Williams bloodline is no longer subject to containment. No apology, no explanation. Just freedom written like a legal inconvenience. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink. On the 4th night, someone knocked on my door. Not broke the lock. Not appeared in my bedroom like a threat wearing a coat. Knocked. That was how I knew it was him. I opened the door with a kitchen knife in one hand anyway. Cassian Devereux stood in the hall dressed in black, his dark hair damp from rain, his eyes as brown and unreadable as the night I first saw him. He looked exactly like himself. That hurt more than I expected. There was no madness pulling at him now. No flinch when my pulse changed. No hunger forced awake by my fear. He stared at me like he had to learn me from the outside. "You knocked," I said. I was told entering without permission was a difficult habit. "By who?" "You." I tightened my fingers around the knife. "Can you hear it?" His gaze dropped to my throat. "No." The word should have relieved me. It did. It also opened something hollow beneath my ribs. "No heartbeat," I said. "No fear. No pain. No anger." His jaw flexed once. "Nothing that belongs to you reaches me unless you give it. And yet you're here." His eyes lifted back to mine. "Yes." "Why?" Rain ticked against the hall window behind him. Cassian did not soften. He was not built for soft things, but something in him stood unarmed before me, and that was more dangerous than tenderness. Because I wanted to be. I stepped back. He did not move until I said, "Come in." Only then did he cross the threshold. My apartment looked smaller with him inside it. Too human. Too warm. Dishes in the sink. Laundry folded badly on the chair. A mug on the coffee table with lipstick on the rim. He looked at all of it like it was a chapel. "If you want me gone," he said, "I will go. And if I don't, then I stay until you tell me otherwise." I laughed once, low and disbelieving. "You make obedience sound like a threat." "It is new to me. Try harder." His mouth almost moved. Almost. I set the knife on the counter between us. "Do you love me, Cassian?" There. No ritual. No grave. No council watching. Just the question. His expression changed, not into something gentle, but something stripped. "I do not know what name to give a thing that survived the death of obsession," he said. "I know I want you when there is no curse forcing me to want. I know I came to your door when silence would have been easier. I know I remember every time you stood in front of monsters and refused to become one for them." My throat tightened. He took one step closer. "I want your temper," he said. "Your mercy, your defiance, your inconvenient conscience. I want the woman who made an executioner lower his hand. If humans call that love, then yes, Nicole. I love you." The words went through me slowly. No compulsion answered them. No blood magic tightened around my heart. Only me. Only choice. I crossed the room and kissed him. Cassian went still for half a second, as if restraint had become instinct. Then his hands rose to my waist, stopping there, careful enough to make me angry. I bit his lower lip. He inhaled sharply. "Nicole, I am not breakable. You are mortal. I looked up at him. Not for long. Everything in him stopped. No. I smiled without humor. That wasn't a question. His grip tightened, then loosened like he had to force his hands to remember they were not chains. I will not make you immortal because you think you owe me eternity. I don't owe you anything. Good. I want it. His eyes searched mine. Why? Because my family spent generations dying for blood they never chose. Because men turned us into legends and warnings and graves. Because I am tired of surviving things only to be told survival is enough. I touched the scar at my throat. I want time. I want power that belongs to me. I want to decide what my blood means now. And me? He asked. I stepped closer until my body brushed his. You too, but not instead of myself. His fangs descended. Not from hunger, from control barely holding. You understand what you are asking. I work with death for a living. This is not death. No, I whispered. It's a door. His hand rose to my face, knuckles grazing my cheek. Once I open it, I cannot close it. Then don't open it until I say. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, Tell me yes. Heat moved through me, deep and immediate. Yes. His mouth came down on mine. This time, he did not kiss like a man trying to hold back a curse. He kissed like the curse was gone, and everything left was worse because it was real. His hand slid into my hair. The other pressed against the small of my back, dragging me hard against him. I wanted him with a violence that belonged to no magic at all. I pulled at his coat. He let it fall. His shirt followed. Mine tore because neither of us had patience left for buttons, and the sound of fabric giving way made something hungry light behind his eyes. Still yes? He asked against my mouth. Still yes. Say stop and I stop. I know. Say it anyway. I dragged my nails down his chest. I'll say stop if I mean stop. His restraint snapped. Cassian lifted me like I weighed nothing, carried me to the bedroom, and laid me down with a care that made the next kiss feel obscene. His mouth moved from my lips to my throat, pausing over the scar he had made first. Not Voss's mark. His. Mine. He kissed it like apology had finally found a language. Then he went lower. My back arched off the bed. His hands held my hips, firm but not trapping, and his mouth learned me with ruthless attention. I forgot words for a while, forgot the court, forgot the crypt, forgot every dead woman whose name had been used to frighten the living. There was only Cassian between my thighs, controlled and merciless, making devotion feel like a threat. When I came, I said his name like a command. He rose over me, eyes dark, fangs sharp, hair falling forward as I pulled him down. His body covered mine. Heavy. Real. No curse singing between us, no invisible chain. Just skin. Choice. Need. Now, I said. He entered me slowly at first, watching my face like every breath mattered. The stretch stole the air from my lungs. I wrapped my legs around him and pulled him deeper. Do not be gentle, because you are afraid, I whispered. His laugh was low and broken. I am always afraid with you. Good. Then he moved. Not careful, not cruel. Exactly what I asked for. The bed struck the wall. His hand pinned mine above my head, but his grip stayed open enough for me to leave if I wanted. I didn't. I held on. Met every thrust. Took him because I chose to. Because my body wanted him. Because the monster above me had come back without a single supernatural chain dragging him to my door. Mine? He rasped, then stopped himself so violently I felt it. I caught his face in both hands. No. Pain flashed through his eyes. Then I smiled. With me. His forehead dropped to mine. With you, he said. The words undid me. I kissed him again, messy and desperate, and he fucked me harder, deeper, until pleasure gathered like a storm under my skin. When his mouth found my throat, I turned my head and offered him the scar. "Nicole." "Yes," I said, "because I choose it. Because I want this. Because I want you. Bite me." His fangs sank in. Pain came first, then fire, then him. Not the curse, not control rotting beneath hunger. This was clean, terrible, intimate. My blood entered his mouth willingly, and I felt the old story break its last bone inside me. Cassian drank, then tore his wrist open with his fang and pressed it to my lips. "One more choice," he said roughly. "Drink or remain human." I looked at him. No force moved my hand. No spell opened my mouth. I chose. His blood hit my tongue like night turning inside out. The world narrowed to his arms around me, his voice against my ear, my own body burning through its last human breath. I did not die gently. I died fighting, clutching him, cursing once because transformation hurt like being remade by lightning. Cassian held me through all of it. When I opened my eyes again, the room was dark. Not dark, detailed. I could see every thread in the sheets, hear rain sliding down brick, smell Cassian's blood, my soap, the city breathing beyond the glass. My heart was quiet. Cassian sat beside me, not touching, waiting. I turned my head. "You look worried." His laugh was almost silent. I have never been more afraid in my life. I reached for him. He came immediately. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. His mouth met mine, and I tasted blood, rain, and the strange beginning of forever. Outside, the night waited. For once, so did we.
In the night where shadows call, a whisper echoes, tempting fall. Fangs like fire, eyes so deep, a kiss that awakes what I tried to keep. Oh, I'm torn between the dark and the light, a love that fades but still feels right. Your name, a whisper calls me home, but how can I follow when I'm meant to roam? I left behind a life I knew, but your shadow haunts, and I'm drawn to you. From the depths where no light can go, your eyes ignite, and I can't let go.